And to that piece of lieutenant that's always on his podcast, bashing us, him.
All right. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, live, brother. Here we are. Listen, 5 a.m. in the great state of California. Well, it's 8 a.m. for you people in Eastern time in New York. So,
California. Who the hell lives there?
I tell you, they talk about when I got here, right? Everybody said, oh, it's just as liberal as New York. It's crazy, this and that. And just like New York, I'm saying, like, where are these people? Because I meet a lot of people. I talk to them, and they think just like we do. They want societal norms. Like, where are these people? Honestly, because most of the people I talk to, they want what we want. They want America back.
Dude, every state in this country is a red state. The ones that are blue states are just controlled by a bunch of lib transplants in the cities. Like, you look at California, it's solid red, dude. You go to LA, it's not. You look at New York, it's solid red. Go to New York City, it's not. And even parts of New York City, go to Staten Island, solid red.
Absolutely.
It's so, like, it really is. It's wild, man. It's wild that we're being controlled by the fringe minority.
Well, we talk about it all the time. We got to get people out there to vote. We have to somehow incentivize it that people actually want societal norms like we do. They want common sense. We just got to get them out to the polls. This is the problem. This ideology of it is what it is. We got to get away from that. It's not. It's really important who you vote on your local politics. The older I get, the more I realize how important your local politics are. I mean, the people on these ballots, these names that you never knew, those are names that you actually have to get to know. You have to get to know Lincoln Wrestler, the guy who looks like Golden Girls, your councilman. You need to know who that guy is. Like, maybe if we actually start to delve into who these people are, do they actually have a life working, we'd actually get somewhere.
Yo, your mic's cracking out again. Yeah, dude, I don't know, man. Like, I don't really get involved in the presidential politics much. To me, there's only one choice. It's Donald Trump. I saw Joe Rogan said he's voting for RFK. Like I said, Joe Rogan, I said on the show before, I've said it online, I've went at it on social media. Joe Rogan, I like him. He holds a great podcast. He has great debates. But when it comes time for politics, the dude's a moron. He said, I never voted Republican in my life. I think you're out of your mind at this point. I mean, Donald Trump, I'm voting for. I don't need to debate anything. I'm not voting for Harris. She's a moron. And Tim Walsh, who wanted to see Minnesota burned down and put tampons in boys' bathrooms. I'm like, that I'm not voting for. I don't think that's a good deal. But you're right. I think the what's going to affect your life is on the national level, is on the local level. Your city council, your state assemblyman, your congressman, these people are going to affect your life. Your mayor are going to affect your life way more than the presidential. Unfortunately, right now, we have such a bad way in the presidential seat that we are seeing things like inflation and open borders that are also affecting our life. But normally, the rest of our lives, it really wasn't like that. We didn't have anything really coming from the national level that was weighing down on us like that.
Well, I got a bone to pick with Waltz anyway. I mean, he completely lied about his military service, saying that he was overseas, and he left the implication. He never said I was actually in Iraq or Afghanistan, but he left the implication saying that he's overseas. Meanwhile, he was in Italy. That's pretty much a vacation. He wasn't serving in a matter
overseas,
of
Eric. It's overseas, bro.
That's true. Good point. Well, James L. Franklin says, hey, good morning, James. Says, I know the importance of local politics firsthand. I mean, we're starting to see that most of us do and realize that local politics has such an impact on your actual life of especially, in your local government, especially when it comes to policing. I say it all the times, right? Because policing is the most tangible form of government. That's why we have to get law enforcement officers involved in the voting process also. Yes, you're a civilian, but you're also a member of the community, and your vote counts. So let's just jump right into this. I mean, great article comes out from the city by Yoav. And Yoav, really, shout out to Yoav. He does a great job with journalism. His investigations are pretty much on point, and he does a great job of putting.
You like him now?
I never disliked him. Listen, he's got a job to report. I don't take it personal. Actually, I appreciate his articles now because at this point, he's delved in and exposed the hypocrisy in my case. So being coined as the most complained cop of the NYPD. I was told, now, I hope that you listen to this, Lou Turco, the LBA president. I was told by Lou Turco, there's nothing we can do. Absolutely nothing. You're not promotable. I could not get promoted to captain because of my substantiated civilian complaints. And I remember back then, and I hope you listen to this, Lou, because I remember I asked you this question. I said, this will come up one day. I sure did. Has anyone ever been promoted with a case similar to mine or even more egregious than my case? Because we all agree that my case was a political hit job and that it was an overzealous civilian complaint review board that targeted my record. Quite interesting. The COVID emergency extension and also the statute of limitations when it comes to the actual civilian charges for civilian complaints were extended in my case, and I was charged with crimes, and the COVID emergency exception was utilized to extend the civilian complaints against myself. So most of the complaints I had by the time that they were substantiated were 4 to 5 years old. And again, Lou, you told me nothing could be done, but yet Kaz Daughtry was promoted 6 ranks with civilian complaints. What do you think, John?
I think it's a big club, Eric, and you ain't in it, brother. Now, if you would have donated to Eric Adams, if you would have showed up at your local Democratic events in the Bronx, you would have stayed, you would have buttoned up with Carl Hasty, you would have hung out with Donovan Richards, you would have been, completely flipped your political ideology and pretended that you believed in open borders, decarceral criminal justice system where we don't prosecute anyone. You're going to want to open the jails. If you would have did all that, you might be the deputy commissioner of operations, my friend. But that's the problem here is like there is no standard whatsoever. Zero standard whatsoever. There is not there is zero process in place. There is zero reason why you weren't promoted to captain, because people similarly situated to you right after you were forced into a retirement because you couldn't make captain because you were unpromotable, similarly situated lieutenant, which almost just as many allegations as you. I don't believe he had as many substantiations as you, but I think he had more allegations than you. One of those two, whatever it was. I could have the numbers flipped. Whatever it was, he was promoted to captain. So, there is zero normalcy. There's zero pattern. Everything is just on a moment's notice. Nothing makes sense. Yet the police unions sit there and pretend like there's some procedure in place when it comes to promotions, when it comes to discretionary promotions. But I think more importantly, and I don't think this gets brought up enough, and you called me last night and you brought it up, and you said, what holds more weight? A civil service test or me being friends with the mayor? And obviously, a civil service test should, in anyone's eyes, should hold a lot more weight, right? You actually earned a promotion. You weren't given one because, I don't know, you were the mayor's little butt boy and followed him around, drove him around during a mayoral election while you were on duty for the NYPD, like it's rumored that Kaz has done. So, I mean, I don't know, Eric. Like, I think you have a major lawsuit, and I think that, it's time for some New York City attorneys to step up, and it's time for the unions to just either start calling it out or step aside and just say, we're here for absolutely no reason. We just like our free cell phones, our free cars, and going out for lunch every day and just picking up the phone and saying, yeah, Mo, nothing you could do, bro. I'm promotable, kid.
Exactly. That's the hypocrisy that I'm exposing here. For a long time, I was in contact with the union. And I was told by Lou Turco that he would actually coordinate and speak to Ed Caban. Back then, he was the first deputy commissioner. And yet I was told nothing could be done. But I was told nothing could be done. And yet Kaz Daughtry was promoted 6 ranks through a discretionary promotion. In my case, for anyone that's watched this, if you're not NYPD, I took an actual civil service exam as a lieutenant. And I was on the list to be promoted to captain. And I was told I could not be promoted to captain because of my substantiated civilian complaints. And here we look at Kaz Daughtry, who is a detective, who's never passed a civil service exam, and he was bumped up 6 different levels of promotion through discretionary. What does discretionary mean? That means that the police commissioner authorized his promotion without a civil service exam and accelerated through the ranks. Now, I would think if we actually say that you need an actual clean jacket, what I mean by jacket, a record, that would actually hold more weight through a discretionary process, that you would actually have to have even far more of a clean slate than taking a civil service exam. But apparently not. And again, it goes back to what we've been saying. Nepotism is far more egregious than anything that's going on with the police department, even far more than DEI. It's all about nepotism, and it circles everything around nepotism. If you're in the club, if you're in the right circle, look, I just saw, again, Hispanic Society is the right circle right now. I just saw Raul Pintos, former chief of the police department, another Man of the Year award for some type of organization. He has huge ties to the Hispanic Society. Again, this whole thing falls around nepotism. We have these different cliques within the police department. And sure enough, what I realized, I was just general population. And the problem is because I was a straight white alpha male. That's the problem.
I think we're selling Kaz Daughtry short here, though. You just said something that popped in my head. First off, I just want to say, Eric, you are not ranked as high in Call of Duty. I don't even know if you're ranked on the PlayStation charts as far as being a Call of Duty player. So, I mean, there was a major qualification that we're missing to why he should be running the New York City Police Department as the second de facto police commissioner, because Ed Caban is clearly not the police commissioner, but he's getting his friends promoted while he's in the seat. Good for you, Ed. Whatever. But I think we're selling him short, because I think it's in this article, and we're going to get into this article in a second. But in the article, it says that he was promoted 6 times, and it makes sense. He was promoted 6 times, but when you really think about it, he was promoted to detective. He was promoted to detective 2nd grade. He was promoted to detective 3rd grade. He was promoted past sergeant, past lieutenant, past captain, past DI, past inspector, past 1-star, past 2-star. To 3-star. So he's actually promoted 11 ranks. 11 times he didn't go the route that everyone else in the NYPD had to do to attain the rank or the assimilated rank of a 3-star chief, which he currently holds as deputy commissioner. So we had played a video on this podcast yesterday. We'll probably play it again at some point in this show. But the video showed Kaz Daughtry when he was a 1st grade detective at a protest that turned into a riot. Gentleman runs away from him. It appears from everything that comes out that as the gentleman's running, he smashes his head into the pole, runs. Kaz Daughtry catches up to him, takes him, slams him to the floor. Next thing we know, the guy's head or the girl's head, whatever, I don't know. It's New York. It's confusing to me. I'm just going to keep saying guy because that's what I see. Stands up, his head's bleeding. It's all over the place. What's interesting about that whole interaction to me is, let's just back up. The video that comes out after an article comes out saying that Kaz Daughtry is going to be sued over this, right? He's being sued because of this takedown, because he took the person down, being sued about this arrest. But then Viral News puts out a 10-second clip. The Daily News in that paper has screenshots, and it appears to be Kaz Daughtry's left hand, Kaz Daughtry's right hand. What is that? It's the body camera, people. 10 seconds that is favorable to the New York City Police Department was leaked out by John Schell and Kaz Daughtry. That's the first thing before we get into anything. Chris, I'm not going to forget about the knee on the back. You're 100% right. That is something that we will get into. We are going to break this thing down further, but we want to just give everybody the basis of what happened and then get into the article. So that's all I got. All right, what do you got?
Sure enough, we're going to delve into the article, but I just want to I just want some key points to sit in your mind while we start to read this article. So several days ago, John and I did a podcast, live podcast. Some of the comments I see, some of you guys, you were there and you heard. And we spoke about the actual promotion of Kaz Daughtry. And it's come to realization, John and I see at this point, it's just Kaz Daughtry is operating too much in a uniformed type of capacity where he's out there taking enforcement. His gun is exposed to the public. And we posed the question numerous times. John has, myself, and of course, Sal Greco. We've all posed the question, as a civilian member of the service, as the Deputy Commissioner of Operations, what laws is he violating? What liability is the city going to be upheld to, the taxpayer, if there's lawsuits that emanate from uniformed police work and enforcement action that Kaz Daughtry is taking? Because that Kaz Daughtry, to our knowledge, at least what the public has been provided, is that Kaz Daughtry was a uniformed member of service as a detective, but he's been promoted into a civilian position. And we've never seen a civilian member of the service, especially as a Deputy Commissioner of Operations, who outranks most chiefs on the job, to be in a position where they're in the limelight and they're taking enforcement action on a constant basis. He takes part in these protests. He takes part in these riots, and his gun is always exposed to the public. So Yoav writes a story, and he does quote John based on the podcast. And this we're going to get into. But the reality is this. Maybe Kaz Daughtry is actually still a detective who was never actually promoted to a civilian rank on paper, but he's been promoted by Mayor Eric Adams as acting Deputy Commissioner of Operations, and that would explain why he's out there in uniform taking enforcement action. That opens up Pandora's box for other questions, but that is something that we need to look at. And listen, Eddie Nunez, a couple of these guys in the comments, good morning. We appreciate you being with us live. Let's jump right into this article. Chris Arnold, thank you for your comments, brother.
Yeah, sorry, my phone's blowing up right now. All right. So this article comes out from the city. And, you know, like Eric said, it is funny, Chris. You're 100% right. He said, isn't it strange that just hours after the Daily News breaks the story, the lawsuit, Kaz runs and posts a feel-good story with Rocco. What a coincidence. Nervous much? For those of you that don't know, Rocco Parascandola actually went up to One Police Plaza yesterday, and it appears they hashed it out at One Police Plaza. And I think that Kaz and Tariq and John Shell explained to him the tenets of journalism, you know, which was which they wrote in the letter that hashtag signed. So so I mean, I don't know what happened. I'm not gonna think, but listen. I mean, it's disgusting that it even had to get to that level, but I don't fault Kaz Daughtry for now reaching out the olive branch or Rocco. Clear the air. This is what men do. This is what men should do. I'm not going to fault them for it, but yeah, you're 100% right, Chris. I personally don't think that Kaz Daughtry went on his own. I think he was told, you know. I mean, by all rumors, we continuously hearing, John, this is going to make you very mad if you're listening or if you tune in later. It's going to make you very mad. But by all rumors, we're hearing that 233 Broadway will have a certain police commissioner head down there in the fall. And we're hearing that your boss, Kaz Daughtry, your driver, is going to be the police commissioner. That's what we're hearing. That's the rumor. I didn't make it up. I'm not spreading rumors. I don't care. I don't need to spread rumors. You guys are fine just the way you are. You give us plenty of content to talk about every day. I don't need to make any moves in the police department. I'm not the mayor. Eric Adams, the swagger man's in charge of New York City. And, you know, the memes are making themselves as the content's coming in hot and heavy. So we don't need to make any changes in the New York City Police Department. We're not starting any rumors. But when we keep hearing something consistently, there's legs to it. And there's a lot of things we said on this podcast. And it all came true. Right?
John, you're 100% right. And here's the problem also. This administration has a terrible PR campaign. They clearly don't understand calculated decisions, calculate expression to the public. Because Kaz Daughtry doubled down when he was asked for an apology by the Daily News Union. And that hashtag signed letter that came out from the NYPD, which we know is most likely Kaz Daughtry himself. Well, not himself, because someone wrote it for him. But that letter was a threatening, alarming, smear campaign response. And again, if that's your response, you should stand by it, which I don't agree with. It was completely unprofessional. It was threatening. It was alarming. But it just shows that they're acting from a childlike place, immature, completely inadequate, inept. They don't have the leadership ability, and they don't have the patience and the virtue to sit back and think about these things and think about the big picture and wait before they actually make a response. But they're like little kids. They got to jump right on the computer and right away and write it right away because they're full of anxiety, because they don't understand calculated responses, and they don't understand leadership, and they don't understand sometimes patience is a virtue. And then immediately after that, what do we have? Just as we always have with this administration. Hey, Ron Lacey, good morning. And James L. Franklin's right. So cute, they kissed and made up. Immediately, we have a staged photo op. That was completely staged. I don't know if it was staged by Kaz or the mayor, Eric Adams, or John Shell, that they would have a photo op of Rocco Pariscondola and Kaz Daughtry, because they never had a photo op before. And you and I spoke offline last night, and I posed this question to you. I said, do you think that Rocco Pariscondola pretty much put his tail between his legs? Or do you think, on behalf of the union, they're playing possum and this isn't over? Because sure enough, this is a staged photo op. It's not an apology. And I think if Rocco Pariscondola was to lay down, this really leaves other journalists and other media vulnerable to attacks again by Kaz Daughtry and the rest of the upper echelon of the NYPD.
I have solid proof that the media, whether Rocco, I don't think Rocco is going to hold a personal grudge. I think he's going to think that Kaz is insane and all that stuff. And I think, he clearly won the battle, right? I think it was the police department that put their tail between their legs, really, after they sent that scathing article. And I think you're going to continue to see an onslaught of articles, both about New York City Mayor Eric Adams and Kaz Daughtry. And this is one of those articles that came out after this. So, and I think it's important. So is NYPD Deputy Commissioner Kaz Daughtry a uniform member of service, or is he a civilian service? Does it matter? We're going to get into that now. Let's get into that article. Honestly, I think this is a great article. I read it last night, and I'm like, wow, this really tells everything. So for those of you that have a question about whether or not he's a uniform or a civilian, we're going to answer that in this article. We didn't answer it. I think the author of this article, Yoav Gonen from the city, I'm pretty confident based upon what he wrote. I know the answer. Let's get into the article. So Police Review Board dropped 3 complaints against a veteran detective after unusual promotion to top brass. The board determined it had no jurisdiction to prosecute Kaz Daughtry last year because his new position was a civilian one. But he still wears a gun despite being outside of the uniform ranks. So, Eric, before we get into the article further, that's a solid point right there. Does it matter that he is a civilian member of the service and wears a gun? And if so, why?
Absolutely. Which is why this podcast is so despised by this administration. This administration and other administrations, of course, but particularly this administration has gaslit the public and bamboozled the public. But now they can't bamboozle the public anymore. They're held accountable by this podcast because our perspective is a different perspective. We're not just saying hug cops, thank the blue, get behind the blue. We're actually giving legitimate perspective. And of course, this matters. It makes a huge difference and different implications for taxpayers and different liabilities, different responsibilities and accountabilities. First of all, as a civilian member of the service, if he is in fact a civilian member of the service, he should not wear his firearm as an open carry. That should be concealed carry. You and I talk about it all the time. We have retired members of the service that get arrested for having their firearms exposed in gun-free zone locations in New York City, in the communist New York City that we have. And the other question is, does he have arrest powers? As a civilian member of the service, does he have peace officer status? And peace officer status, does he have the capability to make arrest on site? And these are questions, because if there is a lawsuit that emanates while Kaz Daughtry is involved in some type of enforcement action, does he have those arrest powers? What's the liability for the taxpayer in New York City? And in addition to that, And Ron Layson brought this up the other day. It was a fantastic comment. If he, in fact, is truly a civilian, that if someone does make a complaint against him, an adversary, a perpetrator, a person of interest, or it's just a bystander interacting with Kaz Daughtry, the Civilian Complaint Review Board would not take that case. That would be done internally by the Internal Affairs, which would coddle, of course, part of nepotism, Kaz Daughtry.
So listen, I'm gonna put out a point there that how Kyle Sullivan was right when he said to me, John, you didn't live in America, you lived in New York City. I understand where you're coming from, but you have to think of it from an American's point of view. And so I have to sit there and I have to look at the overall of this, how insane it is that we're even having a conversation that a top official from New York City in the New York City Police Department shouldn't open carry, and why. I mean, it shows what a communist rule New York City's been under for years and years and years. And it shows the mindset of all of us. Because even I'm sitting there saying, I'm pointing it out, you're pointing it out, Sal's pointing. How's he open carrying? How's he open carrying? But he works for the police department, right? And it's like, why? And anyone in Texas listening to this conversation or in a free state is like, what the hell are these guys talking about? But I just want to put it into perspective for you. We had a city councilwoman whose shirt lifted up during an Israeli protest, and she had her concealed carry permit, because that's the only thing you're allowed to have if you're not a uniformed member of service in New York State. You're only allowed to conceal carry, and she was arrested because her shirt lifted up. I believe she was charged with menacing, and then I believe she was charged with bringing the gun to a menacing for opening for you being able to see her firearm, and then I think she was charged with some crazy anti-constitutional law where she's not allowed to bring it to a sensitive location, and New York State tries to deem what a sensitive location is. And we told you all those prior: bus stops, train stations, trains, buses, basically anywhere in New York City. Maybe even at the water fountain. Maybe if you go to the water fountain, take a sip of water, you're guilty of being at a sensitive location if you're concealed carrying. So they hit her with that charge. We've had retired members of the NYPD arrested, prosecuted, and actually went through, and the judge found them guilty of menacing because their shirt lifted up and they had a concealed carry permit. So if we're going to talk about standards and we're going to say that laws matter and we're a nation of laws and not of men, then by all means, Kaz Daughtry is breaking that law. Giving you the deputy commissioner title doesn't allow you to break the law, doesn't allow a seated someone who was voted in by the people in New York City, councilwoman, doesn't give her the ability to break the law. It damn sure doesn't give you the ability to break the law. So absolutely, I think open carrying matters in that aspect. When you want to bring down a set of guidelines and you're the person that took an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States of America and the Constitution of New York State. Now, although Kathy Holtz's law is absolutely ridiculous, he's out there getting his guys to lock people up left and right daily for violating that same statute that he himself is guilty of. So that's why I think that matters so much. Do I think it's absolutely ridiculous we're having this conversation? I absolutely 100% do. And for all yous in New York City, I know you're thinking like I'm thinking. We've been so indoctrinated that it's not even funny to think that we're not allowed to take our God-given ability to protect and defend our families when we're law-abiding, upstanding citizens who've done nothing wrong. And although Kaz Daughtry is an individual of low integrity, he still, for whatever reason, has maintained his stature in society. He hasn't been deemed a criminal yet. I mean, he's been deemed a liar twice in a trial and in interviews, and he pleaded guilty to that. But he hasn't been deemed a criminal.
Matt, I'm reading these comments. There's great engagement going on here. Some of these people are posing some great questions. We're going to get into the article, but according to Ron Layson here, it says that in the article at some point you're going to see that it says that Kaz Daughtry is covered by the city charter. That may be so, but we're talking about hypocrisy here right now, right? I think that's what's important here. And listen, I've said it before, and I think Corn Pop, he jokes with me in.
Ron's going to the ending of the movie. We're going to get to that, Ron.
Yeah. Well, what is that, a spoiler? But what I'm saying here is I've said it numerous times. Now, I don't think it should be against the law. I'm pro concealed carry. That what I'm saying is that as a gun owner carrying a firearm, I prefer to carry it concealed. I think that's the best tactically sound way to carry it. I think it protects you, protects other people. You know you have that firearm. And if it does leave it exposed, everyone else knows you're the one with the firearm. If something goes down, they know who to avoid or who to attack first. But do I think it should be against the law? Absolutely not. I believe that is a personal choice. I mean, I just think for me personally, and I recommend if you're carrying a firearm, I do believe it should be a concealed matter. But I don't think it should be against the law. You are a Second Amendment carrying gun owner in this country. If you want to make that choice, fine. That was absolutely the most egregious, ridiculous arrest of that councilwoman. Was it Ina Vernikov when her firearm was exposed? That's just absolutely ridiculous. So we have to talk about hypocrisy. And the NYPD should uphold the same laws that they have to administer to the public. So Kaz Daughtry, exactly what we've been saying. I think that ultimately, if I had to put my money on it, I believe that he's still a detective. I believe that he's still a uniformed member of service. I believe he never went to the pension section and retired. I believe that he's only in this position so that he has the rank and power, and eventually they'll just put him right into the seat of police commissioner and say that he was actually, he's had experience out there. He's been open to the public. That's where I see this headed. Someone actually put a comment here that the reason why he's protected, say to protect him. Basically, that's why they put him in this position as a civilian commissioner. And that may be so. But I think that he's in that position so that he has the assimilated power of chief of department, because ultimately he is the police commissioner. Or at some point, he was acting as the chief of department on behalf of Chief Jeffrey Madrick. But I think the reason why, I mean, they know that he's never going to pass a test. So this was the path to promote their boy who's taken over the police department.
Well, that was it. I mean, he couldn't pass the test. I mean, right? You were given all day at work to study, and you still couldn't do it. I mean, and guys like me and you are studying at home, right? After work at 14, 15 hours. And, is it impossible to pass a supervisor test in the NYPD? Absolutely not. You just got to put in the work. So life after the job, since Eric and Ron wanted to before we get through the article, wanted to give the whole point of the article at first, which comes down to the point that I'm going to give a big shout out to Life After the Job first for having his photo as one of the Finest Unfiltered memes. Great job, Life After the Job. And what he says is, you never see a police commissioner with the firearm exposed. Why does he expose his firearm? Ron just said it. Eric just said it. You know why? Because he's not a civilian. Ed Caban is a civilian. The police commissioners are civilian. Kaz Daughtry is not a civilian. Ron gave the spoiler alert, and here it is. We'll still go through the article, but here it is. Here's what the point in the article that it makes. This is from the city charter. In the temporary role, which Kaz Daughtry appears to have been placed in, the New York City Police Department still has not commented back on this article. But in the temporary role, that person would exercise all the powers and the duties and receive the salary of their new position while retaining all the rights and privileges and statuses of their private one. So basically, Kaz Daughtry is a uniformed member of service acting in a temporary role as the Deputy Commissioner of Operations while being paid as the Deputy Commissioner of Operations, but in a uniform pension. I mean, that is the best job there is. And like I said on this podcast before, and this proves that I'm right, he will have the largest pension any police officer has ever had with this doing the same amount of time he has. He is going to be number one. It's not even close. I'm not saying that he'll have the largest one. I'm saying for the amount of years that he put into service and never passing a promotional exam, he's going to bypass everyone that's passed promotional exam in the same time frame as him. It's corruption at its purest form. It's nepotism at its purest form.
I'm pretty confident after this podcast that we're going to get some comments and some blowback in comparison to Bernie Kerik. But I think this is completely different than the case of Bernie Kerik. Bernie Kerik was a detective, yes, but he also did have experience as the commissioner of Department of Corrections. But ultimately, he was actually promoted to the police commission of the New York City Police Department, which is completely different than the avenue we see that the police department under New York City Mayor Eric Adams took in the path of Kaz Daughtry. And I think we absolutely exposed it here. Kaz Daughtry is a uniformed member of the service. He's a detective. Now, there's a difference between rank and billet. His rank is detective, but his billet is deputy commissioner of operations. His actual billet is police commissioner. No one will actually publicly say it, but he is the police commissioner. If anything, I actually believe he's wearing several hats. He's the police commissioner. He's in charge of the police department. He's the first deputy commissioner. What he says goes when it comes to discipline or anything that's on the job. And I do believe he's also the chief of department. He's out there in an enforcement role. So I believe he's wearing several hats. Ultimately, he is de facto leadership of the NYPD. He is in charge. John Shell knows it. Michael Kemper knows it. And that's why they suck up to him. Because these token pale faces, they only care about their self-serving careers. They're total cucks. They're willing to put aside their own moral compass to allow Kaz Daughtry to treat them like a little butt boy because it's beneficial to their career. I mean, I saw Bruce Separano, an inspector for the New York City Police Department, who I went to the academy with. Kaz Daughtry was clapping at him like he was some type of dog, and he never at some point intercepted that. He just allowed it. It's shameful what some of these men will do to have their self-serving careers, to have better status within the police department, how they give up their own masculinity to be in these positions. Is money really everything? Is it really that important that you get the position you want, or the rank, a particular rank, that you allow someone to treat you like a dog to get to this point? I mean, John Shell, he's a complete drunken idiot. We know that. But he has far more experience than Kaz Daughtry, and yet he allows Kaz Daughtry, to boss him around like he's a little boy. It's embarrassing. It truly is embarrassing that we actually have a police department that has so much infection with nepotism. It's gotten to this point. And if it wasn't for this podcast, the public would be completely bamboozled, and this would never be the topic of discussion.
I mean, and I'm gonna point one thing out, and I don't want anyone to lose sight of this fact. So, based upon the city charter, based upon what we believe, because we're left to have to make a hypothesis about what Kaz Daughtry is, because the NYPD is the furthest thing but from transparent, because they won't answer a simple question. Is Kaz Daughtry a uniformed member of service, or is he a civilian? Right? But let's just go back to the title of this article real quick. Let's go back to this, because we're saying that he's a uniformed member. But now we're saying that, oh, he's a uniformed member, so why isn't he being investigated by the CCRB? Because the police review board dropped 3 complaints against veteran detective after unusual promotion to top brass. Let's get into this article a little bit, because I think it's going to make sense. Its city civilian review board dropped 3 complaints of misconduct against a high-profile detective last year after he was promoted 6 ranks, I believe it was 11, to commissioner, a rare elevation to a civilian position that's generally deemed to be outside the agency's jurisdiction. The complaints against Kaz Daughtry, who was since promoted a second time, because he was so good, to deputy commissioner of operations, were sidelined by the police review board last summer. The New York City Police Department removed Daughtry's name from member of service roster that indicates to the board which department employees it can investigate, according to CCRB officials. Very convenient, gentlemen, very. Despite that, Daughtry has been photographed directly engaging in police enforcement actions over the past year while openly wearing a holstered gun on his right hip. Only non-civilian members of service are allowed to carry an exposed gun, several former NYPD officials said. One of the 3 cases closed by Daughtry was the subject of a lawsuit filed last week in Manhattan's Supreme Court by Kashim McKnight, who claims that Daughtry assaulted her at a vigil on May 8, 2023 by grabbing her arm and shoulder and slamming her to the ground. Videos of the arrest, which took place on Manhattan's Lower East Side after the vigilante killing of Subway entertainer Jordan Neely, I'm going to say the death of Jordan Neely, show McKnight running away from the crowd of offenders and protesters while Daughtry, who at the time was a detective in plainclothes, suddenly rushed to pursue her on foot. The videos show McKnight running into a street pole, after which Daughtry grabs her from behind and throws her forcefully on the pavement. Daughtry didn't respond Thursday when asked about the lawsuit outside of a mayoral press conference. He's a longtime protege of NYPD Chief of Department Jeffrey Maddrey, and according to news reports, has been granted a direct line to Mayor Eric Adams, who is also a close with Maddrey. Daughtry's leap in rank is highly unusual in the recent history of the NYPD, and even more because he had 51 allegations of misconduct filed against him with CCRB during his 18-year career, although 4 were substantiated. He's among 4 top policing officials in the Adams administration who have generated controversy. Deputy Mayor Phil Banks was an unindicted co-conspirator in the federal case concerning police bribery under the prior administration. Senior mayoral advisor Timothy Pearson is the subject of 4 lawsuits claiming he sexually harassed a subordinate and retaliated against her and her colleagues who backed her. And in a case awaiting Caban's decision, the CCRB last year brought disciplinary charges against Maddrey for avoiding the arrest of an ex-cop who allegedly menacing 3 kids with a gun. One point of note when it comes to Timothy Pearson, New York City taxpayers, you're footing the bill, over $50,000 in legal representation because he was trying to get on-duty booty.
Crow Eater, it really is incredible how some of these 30-plus year chiefs cower to Kaz. It's utterly ridiculous. If any of them had any self-respect, they'd leave. That's what John and I have been saying for quite some time here. 2 years in this podcast, we've said that. Where is that old white male that's been pushed out by the police department because of DEI and especially nepotism to stand up and say, this is absolutely ridiculous, that they promoted to police commissioner. Right now, it's a show that's deputy commissioner operations. You know, an immature child that has 0 leadership experience that clearly has taken the police department on a dangerous path and is more concerned with stage photo ops and egos over everything than actually understanding public safety and actually coordinate with the public in a manner that we need. We need real leadership. But no one, I've been asking for that one person to stand up, and we haven't had one. I mean, some cops were actually foolish to believe that it would be Joe Fox. Oh, he's such a nice guy. He's going to do a great job in the Civilian Complaint Review Board. How do you think Joe, right, exactly. Hey, Joe, how do you think Joe voted on the panel for Chief Maddrey's complaint of abuse of authority? How do you think Joe Fox is going to vote when it comes to Kaz Daughtry and Kaz Daughtry's complaints, if these complaints actually ever arise and actually meet an administrative trial, if in fact he is the uniformed member of the service detective that we believe he is? How will these play out by these so-called nice guys? Nothing. Now, one of them stands up because it goes back to what I've been saying, because they have to pave the pathway for their sons, their daughters, their wives, and for themselves. I mean, look, we see it with Tariq Shepard. Tariq Shepard, who's not a white male, but he's moved up through the ranks, and sure enough, his wife was given some type of gig. I don't know if she deserves it or not, but it just shows you the correlation that the high upper echelon of the police department paves the way for family members, and that's why there's benefit to gain, and that's why these old white males do not speak out, because they owe someone a favor, because at some point their son was taken care of, their wife was taken care of. Eli, good morning, brother. Thank you so much. He said, I'm right about this. They're all empty suits. He's absolutely right. They are empty suits. John, you say it all the time. They're just the ones that stood around the bar long enough. None of these chiefs are super impressive that you'd say, wow, this is a guy that really could lead any organization. Because in a leadership position, you don't really have to know the entire nomenclature and actually the technicality of that job. But you do know you need to know how to utilize your resources. That's what a leader does. And clearly, we lack leadership in this police department, especially with Kaz Daughtry, who is, in fact, and I will say this, the police commissioner.
All right. So listen, we're 45 minutes in. We're just getting warmed up. I'm have a feeling this is going to be a long podcast. I'm going to have to get another cup of coffee in a day. And at this time, we got one of the 3, the magnificent 3 right here, who is also hated by the New York City Police Department. Want to come on and join us today. I'm bringing up to the stage the Sal Greco. Sal, what's up, my brother? Well, I know there's a lot of craziness going on. We're talking about the greatest show on earth, and the Get Stuff Done team has made it really the most funny show on earth as well.
Sal, what's up, brother? Good morning, dude. I know it's early in the morning. Thanks for jumping on, and I'm sure you're excited about getting into this with us. Kaz Daughtry, brother, what do you got?
Oh, yeah. Thanks for having me on again. Once this hit last night, I was already on the phone with you guys saying, looks like the city and many other journalists are finally, maybe admitting to themselves that we've been right all along and things that we've actually mentioned make sense. When it comes to Mr. Kaz Daughtry, the point here, especially with this article and what they're pointing out is, you need clarification from Mr. Ed Caban, the police commissioner, wherever he may be right now, needs to clarify exactly what is the legal authority that Mr. Kaz Daughtry holds within the New York City Police Department. The problem here is that if you're going to use that old city charter rule, then CCRB, remember, they have an agreement with the CCRB from 2011. You can't have it both ways, where in one instance you're saying you can't prosecute him or you cannot investigate him from CCRB because he's not a cop. But on the other hand, well, he's still a cop and he can arrest people according to the city charter. You can't have it both ways. And this administration has a habit of trying to always have their cake and eat it. And it only points out the mismanagement of the police department and how dysfunctionally it's being run. And it's a microcosm of actually the entire Eric Adams administration. Because wherever you look, whether it be the police department, the fire department, the sanitation department, the DOT, these people that Eric Adams puts as appointed managers are a complete failure. And it's basically a reflection on Eric not being a good manager. And he never was in the police department a good manager because he never was a manager. He was a rabble-rouser who ran around with Al Sharpton and Louis Farrakhan. Now you're seeing it. The city is paying the price for electing Eric Adams, who was never a manager. And this right here is a microcosm of his mismanagement of not only the city, but his own agencies.
You're absolutely right. It's mismanagement. It's poor leadership. But again, I think that it's done by design. I think that Mayor Eric Adams wants useful idiots in their positions to carry out his ideology. And of course, if anything goes south, which it will, because everything in Mayor Eric Adams' circle is sketchy and everything's about money. We hear about who's getting their crumbs. So he needs useful idiots that are not aware of what's going on and they won't stand up because like, oh, okay, boss, whatever you want. That's where we're at. It's unfortunate. And that's why we have to speak out. We have to speak out. We have to speak out against what's going on in New York City. We need the proper leadership. We need people out there that vote and vote better and think about who's actually in office. We need, hey, good morning, Marlon, by the way. Thank you so much. We need real leadership. Honestly, listen, I prefer someone that has law enforcement experience, especially I prefer homegrown of the New York City Police Department to be the police commissioner. But if we need leadership from an outside source, I'm fine with it. Maybe we can get someone that has a life of military service that actually understands leadership, that would actually be willing to stand up for Mayor Eric Adams. But because the mayor appoints the police commissioner, that wouldn't last very long. And that's why, John, you had posed and you believe that the police commissioner should be an elected position by the people. And I think that's the right avenue to go. And that's what makes the New York City Police Department different than other jurisdictions, because New York City is different when it comes to local government. We have 5 counties that make up a city. So we don't have the sheriff's department at the upper echelons, the New York City Police Department, the local metropolitan, unlike other locations like Los Angeles County, where Los Angeles Police Department, the city is part of the county. There's numerous cities that make up a county, unlike New York City, where it's 5 counties that make up a city. So it's different local government. So the LA County sheriffs, the sheriff department in Los Angeles, the sheriff is elected. So I think that's something that we need to explore. I think you really hit the mark with that, John. I think that going forward, we need to petition that the police commissioner should be an elected official by the people.
So, everything that we always talk about on here is politically driven, right? It's life. Politics is life. Your life is going to be dictated by politics, your career, the taxes you pay, everything, the health insurance you have. So that's why it's important to have people that want to make change, not people that want to make money. That's why this podcast supports Tom Sullivan. We're going to get into this article further in 1 minute. Tom Sullivan is the Republican, Conservative, and Common Sense Party candidate for New York State Assembly District 23. Tom is a financial professional who served simultaneously in the United States Army Reserve for 30 years and has now retired. His district covers Ozone Park, Lindenwold, Howard Beach, Broad Channel, and the Rockaway Peninsula.
Come November, I would empower our law enforcement agencies to go out there and do their job and not put them or their families or their pensions at risk for doing their jobs. We need drastic change in Albany so that we have a say in this matter, and they realize people of New York State will hold them accountable.
The Sullivan family has a legacy of service. Tom served for 30 years protecting and defending the rights of others. Come this November, he has earned your support. This advertisement's paid for by the Friends of Tom Sullivan. If you're in Queens or you're not in Queens or you got someone that lives in Assembly District 23, make sure you're pushing Tom Sullivan. Call them up. It's bigger than just voting. We got to take back local politics. So let's delve into this article a little bit. And Sal, let's get your thoughts after that. So next section needs to be clarified. The CCRB has jurisdiction solely over uniformed members of the police department. Daughtry was named Assistant Commissioner in July 23 and promoted to Deputy Commissioner in February 24. Both are civilian titles. He is currently listed as inactive in personnel records that are updated by the NYPD, according to CCRB officials. Daughtry wore his gun visibly recently as Thursday at a mayoral press conference, which underscores the dichotomy. The CCRB closed its investigations of Daughtry when he was promoted to the civilian title. He seemingly retained uniform officers' right to open carry a gun. The juxtaposition has sparked questions among current and former NYPD officials about which status should apply while in his current job. I know a lot of people that were deputy commissioners. I don't know one of them that openly carried. John McCarry, a retired NYPD lieutenant who has been critical of the NYPD leadership, said on a recent episode of the podcast. I'm not sitting here saying that Kaz Daughtry is a civilian, and I'm not sitting here saying Kaz Daughtry is a uniformed member of service, he added. I'm saying that it needs to be clarified. Sal, what do you think about that?
Your exact statement there is actually what everyone here has been asking all along. The issue here, and listen, there's been a lot of chatter amongst even retired members. I'm talking about retired for, 30 years already, that they were longtime members. They knew other deputy commissioners and other commissioners that were on the job. And we've had discussions literally about this gentleman and what his legal role, what is his legal authority in NYPD? And basically, it's always in a roundabout. We always end up in the same position where it's always said, well, only the police commissioner can clarify this. Because as you've seen, Mr. Kaz Daughtry is out there with his gun and shield. I think we played a video not even a couple of days ago. We noticed that he has encounters. And I think me and Eric were actually saying, how does he even – now, if I'm one of these people that's videotaping him and he's threatening him with arrest, and now the normal police officer, they could file CCRBs. I mean, they could sue who they want, but the CCRB is for the point of people that abuse their authority. And this guy has a habit of not only abusing his coworkers, he abuses the media, and he abuses people he encounters in the street. And he really, in all honesty, Kaz Daughtry should be terminated, because I don't know if this guy, what his issue is. I don't know how the NYPD and Eric Adams could justify continuing his employment. I don't know how the rumor is that when Eddie Caban steps down by the end of the month, that Kaz Daughtry would be your next police commissioner. Somebody explain how a guy that we don't even know what his legal authority is in the NYPD will now be the guy calling the absolute shots, rubber stamping everything as a police commissioner. Somebody has to explain all this to me because I don't understand it either.
I'm going to be fair and say this. Based on the video, I have no problem with Kaz Daughtry utilizing a takedown to make an arrest. What I have a problem with is hypocrisy and transparency. The police department talks about transparency, especially under Mayor Eric Adams. Why? We should have constant engagement from the police commission to the public, as we have seen prior from Ray Kelly. And I don't agree with Dermot Shea. He was a total cuck and laid down to the public, but he did have constant engagement with the public. We have to constantly be transparent, but this is the most insignificant police commission that we have. Constant engagement should be, yes, we had an incident with Kaz Daughtry and a reporter. It's been rectified. We're fixing it. Kaz Daughtry is a uniformed member of service acting as a civilian. Whatever the case is, they should tell the public and stop allowing these questions to be asked because the public is left in the dark. I have a problem with the hypocrisy that I could not get promoted to captain because of substantiated civilian complaints. And when we have standards, we have comparisons. You could compare my career to Kaz Daughtry. I passed civil service exams. He did not. He was promoted. And John, I'm going to agree with you, not 6 ranks, 11 ranks. He is ultimately the police commissioner of the New York City Police Department, which means that his record should be the standard for the police department. His record is actually far more egregious than mine. I was never found guilty of lying in a formal investigation with the police department. He was not only found guilty once, but he was found guilty twice. That's where he should be terminated. According to the disciplinary matrix, misleading statements, lying in official investigation is automatic termination. And yet he was promoted to the deputy commissioner of operations, and I could not get promoted. That is just complete hypocrisy. And at this point, for me, I don't care. I'm okay with retiring as a lieutenant. It's not about the promotion, but I want it to be the catalyst for change because it will happen to someone else. And I am a firm believer, because John and myself and you, Sal, that there is a lieutenant that was promoted to captain who has a record on par of civilian complaints in the manner that I have, that was promoted to captain. And I do believe it's because of this podcast and yourself, Sal, because we are the squeaky wheel that gets the oil. We speak out in response to this. And again, just the police department blatantly doesn't have any standards, doesn't follow policy and rule. It's all about nepotism. Someone had put in here earlier that Michael Kemper's son was promoted to detective with 3 years on the job. It's exactly what I've been saying, because this is about paving the way for siblings, brothers, sisters, kids. It's not about proper promotion and actually doing what's right. It's about nepotism. It's about who's in the circle. And that's why you were wrongfully terminated, Sal. You weren't in the circle. That's why John had to leave. John couldn't get a pass like some of these people that's questionable if they actually got the jab or not. That's why I had to leave, because I no longer do what I was paid and trained to do. Because we're not in the club. We were general population because we're straight white alpha males.
I gotta go back, because one, I don't understand, Eric, because I am actually a very good Call of Duty player. I wasn't in the private Call of Duty chat, but that's where you went wrong, Eric. Instead of studying for the job, and for you young guys and girls out there that are looking to move the ranks up in the NYPD, obviously studying isn't the path, right? Call of Duty, while you're studying, Kaz is home playing Call of Duty. And then he's just buttoning up to the politicians. And that's the way to go. That's the clear path in the NYPD. That's the way to go. Right? Don't worry. I mean, listen, you're going to be conflicted politically like John Shelley. You might be out at night, be like, wow, how did I vote for Trump? And now I'm sitting here saying that the guy that hates Trump and getting the jail ready for him, Eric Adams, is the best thing since sliced bread. How do I do that? I don't know, but that's what's going to happen. So that's where you guys were wrong. That's where you guys, but let's get into this article, and then Sal, let's get your thoughts. Before we do that, 2 things I want to do. Life After the Job says, still believe Kaz moved to push Sewell away from the job. What do you guys think? Real quick, before we get into all that stuff, what do you guys think real quick? Sal, did Sewell did Kaz push Sewell off the job?
No, I think that was probably a little bit more behind the scenes than just Kaz Daughtry, because I believe she was the one that recommended a penalty for Madry when it came to the CCRB over that whole case that he had. So I think that had a little bit to do with it. And let's be honest, she might have hung out with the aforementioned co-creator or manager of Con Sofrito, Jimmy Rodriguez, but is she a Con Sofrito girl? Because there's another thing you forgot, John. Me, you, Eric, we don't hang out up there. We didn't kiss the ring, so we don't get promoted. We don't get all the amenities and the luxuries that the Hispanic Society and all these other offices that are linked to Eddie Caban and company get, including Kaz Daughtry, who's also been up at Con Sofrito.
Eric, what do you think, brother?
I think that this comment here, flip-flop McGirt, is pretty much on point. She was a class act. They did her wrong. I don't know what she was thinking, but I do think she was a class act. I think that she was had a great presence. I think she was very professional. But do I know if she was a good commissioner or not? I mean, she gets a lot of credit. I have no idea. She didn't do anything because they didn't allow her to do anything. She was just there in place, just like Ed Caban. The only difference between her and Ed Caban is that she actually made a presence, and she appeared to be professional. She had great speeches. But other than that, what did she do as a police commissioner? I couldn't tell you because she didn't do the job. I don't know why she left. I mean, if she really had the mental fortitude and also had a moral compass, I believe she would have left far earlier and said, wait a minute, clearly they're not going to allow me to do this job. I figured, okay, after a year or so, well, maybe even less than a year, let's say about 8 months, right? She has to transition from Nassau County to New York City Police Department. But she was still in a position of police commissioner. She was the leadership. And she signed off on your termination, Sal Greco. So I can't say if she was a good commissioner or not. And I've heard people say, well, it's not her fault. She had to do it. No, I don't agree with that at all. If you're put in a position of leadership and that power, I'm not signing off on something I don't agree with. Say, you know what? You want someone to sign off on this, have someone else do it. I don't know what she was thinking. I have no idea. And like I said, I'll give her credit. She made a great presence. But we'll never know if she would be a good commissioner or not. But what we do know is she's never actually going to speak out and say what actually happened, why she left. Because, again, she's in line with everybody else. It's about her self-serving career. It's about how she's going to benefit moving forward. Because if her moral compass was far more important, then she would have spoke out about the atrocities that are going on in the upper echelon. All we can do at this point is just assume.
I always said I think Kaz was heavily weighed. If you listen to that women's leadership conference that she spoke out, I highly recommend people listen to it, because she was basically you could see who she was talking about right away. That article had just came out from Tina Moore where it said that Kaz was the real PC, a detective running around, and now we see as a deputy commissioner operation he actually is the real PC as well. But he never needed the rank because he thought he was as a detective. And she says at that conference, she says, you're going to be told what to do by people half your age with a quarter of your experience. I believe she was talking directly about Kaz Daughtry. But was she great? I think she was a nice person from all the accounts I heard from people that I respect. I think she was a nice person. I think that she had some integrity. She had some line. But again, I don't believe she was vaccinated, and I believe she fired thousands of unvaccinated cops and forced them out of their careers like myself. She did listen to this podcast for a time. I don't know if she still does or doesn't. So if you're listening to this, this is why I really am no big, huge fan of you. I don't even know why you got the Mets job, because, again, I think that you were asked to do a lot of things that morally you wouldn't be able to put your head on the pillow at night by the Adams administration, by the unindicted co-conspirator. I think they asked you to do things that you said absolutely not, and you ran away and you hid instead of telling the truth and coming out and standing up and holding on to your beliefs. And I don't think that's something that should be rewarded or lauded, is that you ran away and never told anybody. Now leave your career. I left my career too, but I told everybody the minute I did. I left my career and the next day I was on Fox News. You know what I mean? And I said exactly what I thought about everything and exactly what it was, and she had all those opportunities to do the same thing, and she would actually been on a bigger platform. So I mean, do I hate the lady? No. I think she has way more integrity than the rest of them. I think she would have been a way better police commissioner if given the opportunity than Ed Caban could ever be, than Dermot Shea ever was. I mean, he was, someone said it in here, he was the worst commissioner ever. I'm going to agree with you. I mean, the worst commissioner in my lifetime. He also had his hand puppet, the other de Blasio hand puppet, we could not be afraid. We could not be afraid. Monahan, right?
Oh, God.
So,
what a cow loser.
loser. All right, let's finish up this article and then let's get back into that incident that took place. All right. In response to a Freedom of Information Act requested obtained by the city, the Department of Citywide Administrative Services, which keeps personnel records, stated in April that Daughtry was on leave from his position as a police officer. Now we have a third contradictory statement, right? We have a third. That opens the possibility that in promoting Daughtry, NYPD Commissioner Ed Caban was adhering to an obscure section of the city charter that allows mayor or commissioners to temporarily fill a high-level vacancy with someone who has a competitive civil service position, such as a police officer. In that temporary role, that person would exercise all powers and duties to receive their new salary of their new position, while retaining all the rights and privileges of their status of their prior one, according to the charter. The NYPD press office, cowards, they're watching the show right now. Good morning, peoples. Didn't respond to multiple questions about Daughtry, including whether he's considered a civilian or uniform member and what his duties are. We can't even tell you what the duties are as a deputy commissioner. CCRB officials didn't respond when asked whether they believe the charter provision could in fact allow them to continue the 3 cases against Daughtry if his status is still a police officer. And look, Darsh, look what a coward you are. You won't even respond. If in fact he was a police officer, why wouldn't you do that? I know why. Because he's Eric Adams' little butt boy, and you're afraid to get thrown out of your position. That's why. The Oversight Board reviews instances of police misconduct that includes use of force, abuse of authority, and false official statement, and prosecutes the most serious cases at disciplinary trials overseen by administrative judge. The police commissioner has final say over the disciplinary outcomes. I'm saying right now, abolish the CCRB. They're absolutely useless and toothless. Forget them. They're not a true source of an outside investigation. They can't even not be politically motivated. Sal, what do you think about what I just read?
It's starting to sound like everything is arbitrary. I mean, they're stepping away from the disciplinary matrix. They're stepping away from enforcing these 3 allegations they had on Kaz Daughtry, and apparently those allegations are while he's a deputy commissioner, an assistant commissioner, but he's the civilian rank at that point. So, and it's unprecedented because I've stated numerous times, an assistant commissioner or deputy commissioner, this rule that's in the city charter, there's never been anything written in there. I don't think there's any specifics on the role of what a deputy commissioner would do. I don't think it was written with the idea of, well, we're going to have a deputy commissioner run out there like Joe Cop, like Dillinger, and run around and basically be a cop, like a supervisor, and also put his hands on people, which is what he has done. So I don't think that provision was written at the time with, thinking that there's going to be somebody that's doing what Kaz is doing. So again, the police commissioner is in a hot seat. He can't say no comment because now there's lawsuits. There's many lawyers listening, and they're all saying the exact same thing that we have been either questioning or speculating. And I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to reveal something right here, right now. Back in January, I personally made a complaint to the Department of Investigations about Kaz Daughtry and what his official legal authority is in the New York City Police Department, why he carries a gun, why he's taking enforcement action if he's a civilian. I was on the phone with a lady. She's an investigator. I spoke to her another time right after I made the complaint, and then they disappeared. There's been no response, no answers, no follow-up, nothing. That was back in January. Today is what, August? They've had all this time, and look at all the stuff that's occurred since then with Kaz Daughtry as, I don't know what is he, deputy commissioner, assistant commissioner, but that they've never answered my complaint. And my complaint was months in advance of all these inquiries by the media and anyone else, because I was the original guy that said, what's this guy's legal authority? And again, nobody wants to answer this question. Nobody's bothering to even ask the question, especially the DOI, which is a unit that would investigate the police department. But again, they answer to Mayor Eric Adams. In the end, he is the head of the agency. So it's like, what is it, swept under the rug? What happened with that investigation?
Ron Layson, I believe the allegations were while he was a detective, and they are saying they can no longer investigate because he has been removed as a uniformed member of the service. That's a great point, which is why, even if he's still a detective, a uniformed member of the service, that they pulled him out of the system to protect him. Because if you retire, you resign, you vest out, and you quit, whatever the case is, you leave the job, the Civilian Complaint Review Board will no longer investigate your case. It will be closed out to retirement, closed out, member of the service, vested out, and the Civilian Complaint Review Board will no longer investigate it. I actually experienced, one of my police officers actually had a civilian complaint, and he had left the job. And went to become a police officer in Florida. And unfortunately, he had some family situations and he had to come back. But that civilian complaint was closed out, and they could not reopen it when he came back. I know that was something that was talked about, but it could not be opened up. It was closed out because he had resigned from the police department, and he came back within the year. But that's a great point Ron Layson made, which is clearly indicative of why they took him out of the system, to protect him. But again, I believe that they took him out of the system to protect him. I still believe that he's actually a uniformed member of service. I believe he's a detective acting in this billet of Deputy Commissioner of Operations. And if that's the case, that is definitely a form of corruption. And if Jonathan Darsh doesn't step up, he's absolutely a complete coward, because he and his cohorts, his administration, completely went after myself, Eric Dim, as the most complaint cop. They were overzealous. Most of my complaints were 4 and 5 years old because they exceed statute of limitations. They utilized the COVID extension to target my record. And yet Kaz Daughtry has been under the blanket of protection of nepotism. Sal, you mentioned the disciplinary matrix. Absolutely. That's the problem with the disciplinary matrix, which is why we've waged the conversation and the debate about the disciplinary matrix. The disciplinary matrix should absolutely be abolished because it protects those in nepotism. And if you're in general population, the arm of the disciplinary matrix could have you terminated. Clearly, Kaz Daughtry should have been terminated not once, but twice for intentionally lying during an official investigation, and he pled to it. So no longer is he credible. I mean, he's in a position where he's got his firearm exposed. He can't even testify in court because of his Jiggly-O material, because he's not credible. And how could the public actually trust the police department when you have ultimately the de facto police commissioner himself, Kaz Daughtry, who's not credible to the public, not credible to the Civilian Complaint Review Board? This is the position that we're in right now. It's a sad state of affairs. Ron Layson, great point. I appreciate it. Absolutely. Let's keep moving forward. And by the way, Yoav, listen, I don't hold it against you. I don't take it personal. The article that you wrote as far as my record being the most complaint cop. And I appreciate this article right now because it does expose the hypocrisy. But I do expect some fairness, and I do think that at some point you should write and talk about the hypocrisy in comparison. As the most complaint cop, I should have been promoted if Kaz Daughtry should be promoted as well.
Listen, guys, we got over 350 people in here. Do us a favor. If you're on Twitter, wherever you are, share the space out. Like it, hit it, share it. If you're on YouTube, share the space to your coworkers and friends. Let's get some more people in here. I want a few thousand opinions on this because this is absolutely ridiculous. So, Ron, I agree with you, but I think now that we read this article, I don't think there's any need to go further in this article. It goes into the complaints he had. But now that I read this article, I'm changing my statement. I'm laying with the evidence that was presented forth before us now. He is technically a uniformed member of service. He was placed in this position that's an obscure position that's shielding him from an allegation. And I do believe, screw the CCRB. What did IEB do? And it's time we got to get into that. We got to go back into this incident. We got to go back into this incident and talk about where is IEB, what happened, what's the normal course, regardless of if you're a civilian or a uniform member, What's the normal course of action during a use of force investigation? What happened and what didn't happen? I want to get into that. 10 crazy 10-7. Thank you for sending us the $5. We appreciate it. He says, keep it up, guys. These chubby children are gone when Landa gets in. And unfortunately, you know he will. I'm hoping Landa doesn't get in. Like we said, we're pushing 4 more years of Eric Adams. We want the content coming hot and heavy. We want to talk about all the corruption in New York City. We want Kaz Daughtry as the police commissioner. So we don't want Landa in. No Brad, the white man Landa. Mr. Gumball says you have to admit they have nice shirts and sweaters made for themselves. Mr. Gumball, you're 100% right. I saw your question before. I don't know if he's related to Reverend Daughtry, but it is a damn coincidence. They're all friendly with him, and his last name's Daughtry. So I don't know. I don't think it matters. I don't care if he's a love child or he's not. He's a nepotism baby is what it is. So that article comes out, and viral news,
The
bootlicker drops this 10-second clip. Now you clearly see, this to me appears to be a leaked NYPD official body cam directly from the chest of Kaz Daughtry. Because you see his left hand, he pushes the chief out of the way. The person's head hits the pole, and then you see his right hand reach out. That is a camera placed square on the chest of Kaz Daughtry. That is not a reporter chasing Kaz Daughtry. This is an official leaked body camera video that was given to an independent journalist. Before we go into the incident, what do you guys think about this video leaking out?
Sal, you know what? I'll go first here. I definitely think that this was intentionally leaked, right? It's interesting. Viral News attacked you right away for putting out so-called copyright picture of Kaz Daughtry. Yeah, exactly. We're terrified here. Thank you very much. Of Kaz Daughtry with his knee to the shoulder of a perpetrator that was on the ground that was actually part of this incident. And I think, again, this was intentionally leaked because if it wasn't, there would be a full investigation, just as there was into John McCarry and myself, Eric Dim, on behalf of this podcast, on how we had video several months ago that we put on social media, and that video was actually surfaced around entire social media. But the propaganda of that investigation was to suppress and pretty much a gag order for members of the police department not to speak to John and I, not to have a friendship, but more importantly, not to subscribe, watch, and like this podcast, because this podcast is critical of Kaz Daughtry. And if you're critical of Kaz Daughtry, you will feel the arm of the police department and they will come after you. You will be under attack, just as Rocco Paris Gondola was. This administration is scary. They're cowards. They're dangerous. They're dangerous because they're cowards. You have to watch your back. They won't stab you to your face. They'll stab you behind your back. You have to watch them. I'm figuratively speaking, of course, but maybe not. Who knows what they're capable of? Honestly, I mean, their egos are so important to them. We just clearly don't know what's important to them at this point. But again, I think this was intentionally leaked because, John, like I said, you walked away. I don't know if you heard. Viral News had this video and they put it out on social media. If this was not intentionally leaked, there would be a full investigation to find out where Viral News got it from, just as there was on this podcast.
I heard you the whole time.
Oh, okay. I don't know how far that coffee machine is, but that's my thoughts on it. Yep. And listen, get your party department mug now. And listen, great comments. And someone put here, Matthew O'Brien, in video, I don't see police officers chasing Kaz in upper supervision, hoping to get 3/4. That's quite interesting. Listen, I'm sure they will file for 3/4 at some point because that's another scam that goes on the police department. But that's not just to this administration. That's a huge scam that goes on. But Sal, what are your thoughts?
I remember I almost have the patrol guy procedure in front of me. I have it somewhere in the house still because they handed it to me and said you can't speak to the media or leak things to them, which right here looks like somebody clearly did. So if Bootlicker News, a.k.a. the migrant shelter czar, wants to, I actually checked with lawyers about him trying to sue the podcast. That's pretty laughable because there's no defamation. There's nothing there. But if there was a lawsuit, Bootlicker should know that his phone will be absolutely viable for John McCarry and yourself, Eric, which means we will finally know who he is talking to in the police department, his sources, which I think we know who the exact source is. And his gig will be up that he's the bootlicker, also known as the migrant shelter czar. And if you look at his social media, the numbers, like I noticed that Kaz Daughtry got no likes, no reposts. And the only time he does in the last couple of days is when Bootlicker reposts him. So they're using the Bootlicker's 100,000 followers on X. I don't know if they're real or not, to boost his post, because obviously, you know, Kaz Daughtry, his following are basically everybody that hates him. Nobody likes him. So all that stuff is being done through the proxy, the Bootlicker. So that video, though, doesn't show the whole thing. He was trying to say, and I'm not, listen, say what you want about Talia Jane. She has the whole video where you do see an unauthorized takedown, the unauthorized foot on the back of the neck there from Kaz Daughtry. So Bootlicker News is constantly throwing up propaganda for these clowns, saying, oh, she doesn't have the video. I was there. I showed you the whole thing. But his video doesn't show what her video did. And it's true that he used an unauthorized takedown and then held the guy down with his knee on the back. These are things that the normal cop would be destroyed. In fact, it's not in your training. I don't know that if you haven't noticed, Kaz Daughtry does virtually every day. He does something that you're not supposed to do. He is a complete liability for the city, and there's going to be lawsuits all over the place. And it's unbelievable, once again, that he's still employed. But no, I'm not surprised that the Bootlicker will release anything, because that's their proxy. The migrant shelters are. Where there's a shelter, a migrant shelter, Bootlicker might be there to put exclusively his Bootlicker mark on the video to say, oh, look at me. Well, I'm going to say like him. Yeah, bro, I'm over there at the migrant shelter, bro. It's all, you know, Kaz Daughtry, bro. You know, you should just be friends. I mean, he had nothing to do with anything that happened to you, bro. Bro, have you seen what's going on in the migrant shelter, bro? Bro, it's migrant crime wave, bro. I said it first. That's the kind of stuff. That's how he talks, just to let you know.
So I'm trying to count how many times you said bootlicker.
Well,
Sal just created the new thing, man, right there. Bootlicker News NYC. So we're gonna make a cartoon about that. I think
AKA the migrant shelters are.
The migrant shelters are. I love it. Listen, let's get into this before we get into the video again. Obviously, they leaked the video. 100% right, Eric. There should have been an investigation. They gave it to Bootlicker News NYC. This is Katie Honan. I don't even know what I think she works for the city or the Gothamist. I don't know. But she's always at the mayor's press conference. She confronts Kaz Daughtry to ask him about the lawsuit, and his driver, John Shell, gets in the way. Let's play that video right now and see what they got to say.
Do you want to comment on the lawsuit filed against you last week? Did the person's face hit a pole, or did you shove the person? Because video shows you grab the person.
Well, I'm gonna send you a video of the guy hitting the pole. You gonna post it?
Oh, you already gave it a viral news. I saw it.
Will you post it?
Show me more than 1 second of it, and I'll post it.
Will you post it?
Yeah, send it to me.
All right, send it a little bit.
Send it to me.
So unfortunately, we asked John for the video too, but he hasn't said it because we wanted to play it here this morning for you guys so we could see the entire video rather than just the 10 seconds that they released to Bootlicker News New York City, and legally broke all protocol. And by the way, they jammed police officers up for leaking body camera video, but they themselves should be jammed up. He didn't even flinch when she says to him, oh, you already gave it to Viral News. He didn't even flinch because he did, him and Kaz, because you're 100% right. Kaz's followers, all their followers, they talk about us looking for likes, clicks, clout. They're buying followers, dude. They're buying. Look at their numbers. I mean, it's ridiculous. I don't have any followers. You guys don't have any followers. We got nothing compared to what they got. Yet when we post something, there's hundreds of comments. There's thousands of likes. There's hundreds of thousands of views because all the shit that we're doing is organic. The shit that they're doing is artificial.
And this is ridiculous. This is ridiculous what he's saying. You know, I don't know. First of all, he never released any video, John. And Kaz, oh, look, he doesn't want to answer him. He's looking, he's so nonchalant. This guy is costing taxpayers so much money. They have every right to ask for this video, which they never released, by the way. They never released. I don't know if Bootlicker will have a new video up later saying Kaz Daughtry is God, like the mayor is, because that's their proxy. They don't have a real This is when they talk about social media. I think they're including the bootlicker because somehow he is the guy who releases and talks about them as if everything they do and every little event that happens is thanks to these two guys. His whole social media is now like a NYPD propaganda wing of the NYPD. That the sky is so blue, the sun is great because the NYPD they are upholding the law. Listen, I'm going to say this. People say back to blue, but I'm saying back to blue without a blindfold. You say trust but verify. What's the Reagan way? I say this the same way. Verify and trust because you can't trust any of these guys anymore. Look at these people. Look at these two. Where was that video? I never saw a video. John Shell never released anything to Katie Honan or anybody else. We don't even know who is that Kaz Daughtry's body cam. Like, where did they get that video? Someone should question Bootlicker News. And I know he's gonna say, "Yeah, bro, I can't remember my sources, bro. I can't." Well, you know who the source is, though. So it's more of the same from these people. There's no transparency.
We nailed it right here. We nailed it right here, brother. We said it. Viral News intentionally leaked it on behalf of John Shell and Kaz Daughtry. He didn't even skip a beat, John Shell. He didn't skip a beat because that's absolutely the truth. That's why. Oh, you're gonna release the same video? Because other than that, otherwise it'd be a full investigation. But here's the question, Viral News. I got two questions. One, if we trademark Bootlicker News New York City, you can't use it because that would be copyright infringement. Just want to let you know that if we trademark that, so you're gonna have to trademark it first. And the second thing is this: how much are they paying you? How much are they paying you so they get all these likes and clout? How much are they paying Viral News? Because Viral News, I tell you what, we tried to advise him much earlier with his relationship with John Shell and Kaz Daughtry, and it wasn't that long ago. It was about a year ago. We were on X Space with Viral News where he completely bashed the police department and he bashed the leadership. Just want to let you know that Kaz Daughtry and John Shell completely bashed it, but all of a sudden he butted up and got a relationship with you because he wants access, unlike the rest of the media that's getting shut out because this least transparent administration. Viral News, you lost your way, and I tell you why, because you're losing credibility. And when this ship goes down, if you continue a relationship, you're going to go down with this ship, and you're going to be media that's not trusted by the public because there's no more objectivity, just like in the letter that the NYPD put out to Rocco Paris Gondola. Where is the objectivity? No longer have you lost your neutrality. You've butted up to Kaz Daughtry and John Shell to have full access to the police department. I'm sure this way that you have security when you go to these migrant locations. I gave you credit. You go into these dangerous situations, reporting on the illegal military age males. But I'm sure John Shell and Kaz Daughtry will provide you extra security. So I'm curious what type of amenities that you are getting for being in this relationship. You've already had a conversation with John about copyright infringement. Let us know. I'm curious. Be transparent. What type of benefits and amenities do you get for having a relationship with the upper echelon, especially Kaz Daughtry and John Shell? I'm curious.
You shouldn't be curious. I just told you what he gets. He gets leaked body camera video. He gets access to crime scenes where they go in and do search warrants for illegal marijuana, which I don't know what that is because marijuana is legal in New York City, right? I thought we touted that new law. And guess who was arrested for selling illegal marijuana? Bootlicker News. So it's the whole thing. If anybody shouldn't be in there, it should be him. No news. When did you ever go on a search warrant with the news? I've only ever seen this during this administration. You see Angie Martinez and who's the other girl? They're not Angie Martinez, whatever her name is. Street soldiers come and go. Come on, bro. This
John. We never saw that. Never. That's never happened. It just doesn't happen.
So it comes out that this guy was arrested for disorderly conduct. I don't know what that entailed. I'd love to hear the details of that disorderly conduct. And he was actually issued a summons. And I posted about it where it was actually an inspector who signed the criminal summons. So now think about this. Kaz Daughtry, as a detective right here, first grade detective, he chases this person down. Person's head hits the pole. Kaz grabs him, takes him down. He takes him down hard. I don't know where the injury on his head stemmed from. Did it stem from the pole? Did it stem from the takedown? We don't know, right? The investigation into those details hasn't been released. I don't even know that there was an investigation done because this individual was only given a summons. Now, I'm saying right now, if a rank and file member of the police department did that, they would be immediately suspended, and more than likely they would be facing criminal charges right now under Alvin Bragg. So let's just talk about that instance right there. Have you ever, at any time in your career, Sal Greco and then Eric, have you any time in your career ever arrested someone or issued a summons and handed the paperwork over to a full bird inspector for him to sign the summons for?
Absolutely not. I've never seen a full bird inspector signing off on any summons or signing a summons. The highest rank I've ever seen write a summons would be a lieutenant from Highway. And I think you know why, because that lieutenant was actually the CO of a certain highway patrol, the entire thing. So that's the only time I've ever seen a supervisor signing off on a summons, which, by the way, the unions tell them do not do that for many reasons, legal liability issues. But the fact that the inspector signed off on the summons already gave me, before the city wrote that article was released, already started questioning, he was promoted in July. This thing happened in May. Something isn't right here. Did he get promoted or did he suspend his rank? There's something here, because it doesn't make any sense that the CO would sign off. A CO. John Diadamo, I think, was on that lawsuit. I know exactly who he is. He's the CO of SRG. I remember I had an interview with him. So I don't know why he's signing off on a simple summons, which, by the way, I believe this entire case was dismissed either by the Manhattan DA or whoever they tried to go through with. I don't know if it was the criminal court, Manhattan DA. It was completely dismissed, so it's a false arrest now. And I've never seen this done. I worked with plenty of COs that were very active with me, doing things on the Coney Island Boardwalk, but they never wrote out a summons. So I don't know what to say here. I think this was more of they're not telling you something that we should know. And I think the city has hit the nail on the head saying that he had suspended his rank. I believe it said April. So that means when this incident happened, what is he? See, we're not getting clarification yet because this is all going to come out. We were all waiting for a lawsuit finally challenging this guy's authority or what his legal position is in the police department. And I think this incident's going to uncover that, because there's no way I've never seen it that an inspector signs off on anything that's related to an arrest as if he did it, that's crazy.
Eric, before you go, it says it right here. McKnight's lawsuit also names John Corbiserio, an inspector in Manhattan South, who signed the summons.
Yeah, I noticed that also, that he signed the summons. Listen, I changed my position also. I said that in leadership, you have to be innovative. You have to have new plans to actually show that you're the leadership, you're a new administration. This administration is actually pretty innovative. They do things that are completely not customary, that we've never done. We have civilian member of service doing enforcement, civilian member of service, open carry. We have a detective that was promoted 11 ranks that's in charge of the police department. We have no idea who leadership is. We have a full takedown right now with a TRI that should be prepared with a summons, which doesn't even correlate anymore with the way the police department is moving forward. If you did a takedown like that on camera, on your body camera, and only wrote a summons, you would be suspended. If you were general population, absolutely, you would at least be modified, but you would absolutely be suspended. No way are you going to take someone down, a forcible takedown, because according to the police department, if you do a forcible takedown, you have to fill out what's called a TRI, a threat resistant injury report. And that also correlates to an arrest report, not a summons. And if there was an allegation, obviously there was, of force where the person sustained an injury, that would be investigated by internal affairs, which we were just talking about, John. Where did that go? Because this person was issued a summons. There was an allegation that this person, this adversary, sustained an injury, which means it would be investigated by internal affairs. And look at that picture right there. What did internal affairs do with it? Because I received a substantiated complaint for putting my knee on someone's shoulder, holding them down in custody, an adversary that shot another gang, a rival gang member. And this was even before the George Floyd incident, but that was weighed against me after the George Floyd incident because my civilian complaints were brought up several years afterwards. So again, the same standards should apply. To have comparisons, we can compare my incident with Kaz Daughtry. We have a standard here. Where is internal affairs on this case? So this administration is pretty innovative because they do what they want. When does an inspector sign a summons? That's absolutely ridiculous. You know when an inspector signs a summons? When they want that summons dismissed and thrown out because they want this case to go away. Because that inspector is not going to court. He's not going to criminal court if there is actually testimony required to testify in this case. Absolutely not. This is the most ridiculous thing. Why didn't Kaz Daughtry sign that summons? Why wouldn't he sign that summons? It doesn't matter if you're a civilian or a uniform member. You're the complainant. You're the one that witnessed it. If it's a summons, you're the one that witnessed it. Why wouldn't he sign the summons? Again, just more problematic issues by this administration. High level of corruption. They are innovative, but innovative in the level of corruption. They're not innovative for anything that's positive, for anything that's good. I mean, we don't even see any police officers here. They just operate in their own manner. There's absolutely no standard. These guys could just do whatever they want. They just run around like stormtroopers. This is like Gestapo.
What do you think about this move? Is this a trained technique, or is this an unauthorized move? What Kaz Daughtry is doing here?
No, this is completely unauthorized, and other officers you've looked in the past have done any kind of move like this. They always get disciplined. The internal affairs investigation. If there's a lawsuit, you're wondering if they're going to indemnify them because they're saying, well, you need to, like I said the other day, every officer out there, remember what I'm saying here. Always go back to your training. Does your training train you to do this move or whatever it is that they're alleging you did? Because that's what matters. Doesn't matter what John Shell tells you to do or this idiot, Kaz Daughtry. You have to go back to your training. If you're training, just like Sergeant Berry, he might have lost his job because it was a completely political hack job on him. But his training said he was allowed to shoot the individual with the bat because we train to shoot that when we go to the range. See, and they're going to say, "Oh no, but we don't agree with what he did." But that's not what you trained him to do. Your training says you can, and that's why he wasn't in jail for that. So always go back to your training. This is not the training. Yeah, was that Cougar? Is it diaphragm law? Yeah, that's exactly what he's breaking, and the law was already in place. So right now, he should actually be charged if they want to go that route. But Eric brought something up, the TRI report. And I've been bringing this up, and I see Errol Lewis. A lot of guys are jumping in on this because so what didn't he do in this instance of this arrest? Which is the reason why, in all honesty, why Derek Chauvin got in trouble, why Daniel Pantaleo got in trouble. It's not the point of it was an interaction. It's not the point of the police action that got involved. If you take a swing at someone or you quote unquote choke somebody or whatever they want to say happened to Eric Garner, or have your knee on the back of somebody like he has here. One thing he forgot to do, besides the TRI report, which is also another thing you're supposed to do, he didn't render aid. This gentleman in handcuffs must go straight to the hospital. That is the patrol guide procedure. There is no going to the station house. No, you go straight to the hospital. Whether you're giving him his summons or not, he is in police custody. He is clearly injured. He's bleeding like a sieve. He must go to the hospital. That is where Kaz Daughtry failed and what he ultimately would be and should be terminated for, if not for every other infraction this guy does on a daily basis, because other officers in the past have lost their jobs for exactly not doing this, not rendering aid. That's what they got Daniel Pantaleo for. The guy was screaming he can't breathe. He's in handcuffs. You have to bring him. You have to render aid. They waited for the ambulance to come when took him right to the hospital. That's what the argument's going to be. Same thing with Derek Chauvin. They waited and waited and waited, and the guy he's lifeless. Where are you taking him to the hospital? The guy can't. He's telling you he's got a problem, and he's in handcuffs. That is where you'll get in trouble. That's straying away from your training. So I want to know, this gentleman, was he rendered aid at all? Is there an aided card? Is there a report from the hospital? Because he got a desk appearance or whatever. You got a desk appearance taken on a summons. That's telling me they never rendered aid. And that is a fireable offense. That's for everyone involved, but especially Kaz Daughtry, who took the lead on this.
But again, we don't know any of this, Al, because the threat resistance injury report, we don't know if it was even prepared. We don't know if it was even prepared. We don't know what it states on that. And for those of you that are studying for the sergeant's exam, or those of you that are curious, there's levels of force. There's 4 levels of force in the NYPD. Each one of those levels requires some type of investigation. This level right here is level 3 use of force. And I'm going to tell you exactly why it's a level 3 use of force, which dictates that the investigating officer will not be the inspector on the scene. It will not be the duty chief. It will be the Internal Affairs Bureau. The Internal Affairs Bureau should investigate every allegation that you just made here, including the one where why wasn't he rendered aid, right? So this is a level 3 use of force. Alleged or suspected use of a chokehold or prohibited method of restraint. This is a prohibited criminal method of restraint. This right here violates the diaphragm law. So Cougar, you're 100% right. This puts pressure on the diaphragm, which you're not allowed to do. And we're going to get into that before we get off. I can't stay on here all day. But the first NYPD police officer has been charged for the diaphragm law, even though Mushmouth Terrence Monahan told you, we can't worry about it. They're not going to do it. Just go out there and do your job. They're never going to charge us, right? And now we have the first. Here it is. We said maybe they're not going to charge you right away, but eventually now the seal has been cracked, and you're going to start to see cops being charged with that. We'll get into that in a little while. But this right here, this is violation of the diaphragm law. This is criminal. So for that reason alone, it's a level 3 investigation. The other reason is that this individual is alleging that he was hurt not from running into the pole. He's alleging that Kaz Daughtry slammed him down. He cracked his head open. So alleged or suspected excessive force, serious physical injury, which is the gash on his head, which required stitches. So that in itself, again, dictates that this is a level 3 use of force, and the reviewing supervisor unit must be the Internal Affairs Bureau, not the inspector on the scene. And 1,000% Kaz Daughtry should have signed that summons, not some inspector who was uninvolved. Right? Here we go. Here's another reason. A serious physical injury to a subject, civilian, or non-member of the service bystander resulting from police action. So we hit 3 points on why this is an Internal Affairs Bureau investigation. And I'm going to give you one more before you go, Eric. There's one more. If Kaz Daughtry never put his hands on that guy, he chased him, and this dude runs into the light pole, cracks his head open, sustains a serious physical injury, it's still a level 3 use of force investigation, and the Internal Affairs Bureau is still required to investigate it. Where are the threat resistance injury reports?
Absolutely. Actually, that's why I want to acknowledge what you just said here, John. John's absolutely right. What's the key component to a TRI is the allegation. So even if someone is standing next to you and you never touched them, but they allege that you caused them an injury, like I never even touched this person, there would be a TRI, which is a threat resistance injury report prepared, and there would be an internal affairs investigation. Why? To actually protect you and to exonerate you. And what else is supposed to be done here, John? Self-report. He's supposed to self-report also because he took action where someone sustained an injury. Not necessarily did he or she. I don't know this adversary, if it's a male or female. If he or she sustained an injury from the takedown or the pole, he should still self-report that the adversary, the perpetrator, did sustain an injury, and then a medical treatment prisoner form will be prepared. All documentation will coincide with this particular case. So we're missing a lot of key components for this internal affairs investigation. Clearly, this was closed out. No proper investigation to protect Kaz Daughtry, as always, the golden child of the police department. I think this is a complete failure. But the problem is standards and comparisons. We can compare this to my case. I'm telling you right now, 100%, I put my knee on someone's shoulder that we apprehended a perpetrator with a firearm that shot a rival gang member. This was going on in housing. We had a large riot and I had to control this person, but this was before the diaphragm law. This was before there was a training video by the police academy, which is under this leadership of telling you what you can't do, right? Remember that video, John? You can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this. And one of the things you can't do is what Kaz Daughtry did here. So Kaz Daughtry violated their own policy that is ministered by this actual leadership, and they failed with this internal affairs notification. He is supposed to self-report this case. And this should absolutely not just be a summons. This person has to be arrested to ensure, just as Sal said, that they get rendered aid. They're immediately supposed to be requested and asked, do they need medical aid? And if not, just a determination, even if they say no, this person would be transported to the hospital because clearly they sustained an injury, whether it was from the takedown or the pole. But it's our responsibility as law enforcement professionals of care, custody, control, and to take care of persons of interest and our adversaries. Listen, this is a great podcast. We've got some great comments here. And John, you're absolutely right. It's just like when people drink a beer and you have to go to the bathroom. Once you crack that seal, it's over. And we just cracked that seal. We have our first police officer that is facing charges exactly under this law administered by New York City Council.
Sal, what do you got, brother? Let's wrap up the Kaz Daughtry. It's my contention that he's a uniform member of the service when it's convenient for him, when it comes to his pension, when it comes to his benefits, when it comes to his pay, when it comes to his use of police authority, when it comes to his ability to open carry, when it comes to his ability to act as a police officer. But then he's a civilian when it comes time to face up the consequences for doing the work of a New York City police officer, because as we all know, with great power comes great responsibility. But Kaz Daughtry had seemed to have the ability to shield himself. So he's a superhero. He has all the protections as a civilian member of service with all the protections of a uniform member of service without actually having to answer up to the responsibility. Sal, what do you say? Is he a uniform member or is he a civilian member?
I still am on the I believed he by the book he should be a civilian member, but of course I am now going to wait for some kind of legal clarification from Mr. Eddie Caban. This is a legal question, and I want to tell people how the real world works, because you're not going to get this kind of analysis anywhere else. We've all been in court numerous times, Eric and myself. I can tell you, this is going to be depositions that will be going on for many years. I
forgot myself too, Guy. I've been in federal court, state court, everything.
But I mean, I've been in like so many cases, and I'm sure Eric's been like, God knows, like, guy, but Eric would make 10 arrests in one night. That's 10 cases. So, like, I tell you how a courtroom works, what an attorney's looking for, and how they're going to ask you questions. And I don't know how a guy who's been deemed not credible by not only the Bronx district attorney, but the Brooklyn district attorney from day one, essentially for many years. I don't know how he's going to be testifying in court and how it's even being credible. He shouldn't be out in the street because he's not credible to begin with. So this is a quagmire. And I can't wait to see how they're going to justify his actions and clarify this, because either way, they're going to have a problem. Whether they're saying he's a civilian, whether they say he's still a cop, whether he's on the city charter, whether the CCRB, they're violating one or the other. They can't have it both ways, because once you go to a courtroom, you're facing the music. But I want to see the clarification. And this lawsuit, I'm definitely going to pay attention to. You know why? Because I know he didn't render aid. That's what we're questioning. But I know that he was given a summons with a bloody face because he didn't get rendered aid. So if you're going to treat other cops just like this other one we're about to talk about, you can't have arbitrary rules where he's shielded and certain people are shielded from things, and then other cops are thrown to the wind. That's why we need the police commissioner should be stripped of his powers about discipline. CCRB shouldn't even be there. It should be an outside agency that doesn't go to dinner with Eric Adams and company, that is just completely separate and does things impartial with no ties to anyone. They get a case, they look at it. It is what it is. Whatever they decide, that's what's going to be. That's what you really need if you're going to be transparent and you're going to be liable to the taxpayers. And until we see this, the drumbeat's going to continue on, the drumbeat of corruption.
Sal, you're right. The drumbeat of corruption is going to continue on. I just want you to answer the question if you can. I'm curious. According to what John said, do you believe that he's actually a uniformed member, or do you believe that he's actually a civilian member? What do you believe his actual rank is, and how he's paid for, and how he's going to retire?
I think I think that he's a civilian. I think that he's making a $240,000 for civil. I think he is a civilian. He gets paid as a civilian. He has all the powers of a commissioner. I mean, does he not call commands and then has people transferred if they don't say, "Sir, I don't recognize your name"? Or does he not abuse his coworkers? I know the stories. I know what you've done, Kaz. You've walked into places. You want people standing at attention for you. If they don't, you transfer them. You transfer the supervisor for not doing this. So you very clearly are showing that you're a civilian. You're a deputy commissioner. So if that's the case, then the rest of the stuff that we're seeing, it needs to be legally clarified because it's illegal. It doesn't work. I'm going to go with he's a civilian. And until we know something 100%, which means Eddie Caban, I don't know where you're at, but you have to clarify this. Whether you do it today or tomorrow, this is coming to a head because this is a clown car with the clowns coming out of the car before it crashes into where it's supposed to be.
Before I go ahead with my answer, my response, I just want to read this comment. He's absolutely right. Matthew O'Brien, Internal Affairs have plenty of witnesses, all those big bosses, which is why John and I have been expressive that Internal Affairs should be outsourced. It should be an independent watchdog. If any organization, just like CCRB, should be an independent watchdog, it should be Internal Affairs. Because who are the witnesses to this TRI, to this investigation, are Kaz Daughtry's cronies, all the big bosses that have the police department. So clearly we know the direction that this Internal Affairs investigation went. If there actually was an investigation, I'm sure this thing was closed very quickly with no outcome. Now, I will say this. I think that the three of us, we prosecuted this case and we presented all the evidence. And clearly, with all indications, Kaz Daughtry is a uniformed member of the service. Clearly, he still has a tax number of detective. He is a detective. He did not retire. He did not go to the Penn Station. He is a uniformed member of the service, acting with the billet of a civilian member with the power that is assimilated to the chief of department. Also, the police commissioner. He has the power of a high-ranking civilian, but based on the evidence that we presented, I will stand by that decision unless someone tells me otherwise. I believe he is, in fact, still a uniformed member of the service. Every indication has led in that manner. We can't see it in any other form, and it makes sense why they took him out of the system to protect him from the CCRB. But I believe he is a uniformed member of the service, and I think we can pretty much put that to bed. And I'm sure Mayor Eric Adams and Kaz Daughtry and John Schell, they watch this podcast. It would be a great opportunity for them to come on this podcast and actually tell us what position he is, his rank and his billet. But we'll never hear from them, and we won't get the transparency. So let's go forth. Let's talk about the first case where an NYPD officer was charged for allegedly choking a victim who faces multiple charges. John, let's get right into it. This is our first case. We've been talking about it. According to Terrence Monahan, the coward of the New York City Police Department, this would never happen. And guess what, Monahan, because we know you watch this too, you were wrong again.
So for those of you just tuning in, we got about 500 people in here now. Dan's asking, where are the try reports? We're asking the same thing. Go back and watch the beginning of it. Where's the investigation from Group 1? 100% level 3 investigation. Does he have a body camera? Yeah, we saw a 10-second clip that was leaked to Bootlicker News, or those you might know him as Viral News New York City. 10-second clip of Kaz's own body camera was illegally leaked to him. We've had cops jammed up in the past for that. We also discussed on this prior the the stages of the investigation that should have happened that never happened. We discussed whether or not, like Eric just brought up, whether he's a civilian or a uniform member. I think if we went through the article in the city, and I agree with you, Eric, I think 100% he's a uniform and he's being shielded. He's like a transgender. He's a transgender. He's a deputy commissioner one day. He's a uniform member the next day, depending on what's beneficial for him. So 100%, he's a two-spirit. Well, actually, that's a third gender. So he flip-flops. He goes back and forth. So NYPD officer charged for allegedly choking a victim faces multiple charges. I know all the anti-police people are going to jump down our throats. Oh, he choked somebody. He knocked them unconscious. I can't believe it. Oh, my God. But I'm going to sit here right now, and me and Eric have said it before, police officers should be allowed to choke people. Sorry, if you don't like it, it's just the reality of New York City, and we're going to show you that, why it's the reality of New York City. We're going to go for about 20 more minutes. So, guys, when we go, please just keep it to 60 seconds, under 60 seconds. Let's go back and forth on this. For the first time in history, Bronx history, an officer is being charged on the New York City statute 1081, unlawful method of restraint, which we just showed Kaz Daughtry clearly doing when he was kneeling on a defendant's back. NYPD officer Omar Habib is accused of allegedly placing a victim in a chokehold, causing the victim to lose consciousness. Bronx District Attorney Darcel Clark announced on Thursday. Habib was arrested on Thursday and arraigned before Bronx Supreme Court Justice Brendan Rivera on second-degree strangulation, court documents show. Off-duty officer arrested in the Bronx. Defendant allegedly violated his oath of office by employing a technique to subdue a suspect, which is specifically prohibited under the law, DA Clark said. Police officers must adhere to the law. I guess not Kaz Daughtry. According to the court reports obtained by Pix 11 in July 2023, 40-year-old Habib, assigned to the 4-7 precinct, responded to a call at a catering hall on Eastchester Road. A victim was allegedly drunk and disorderly and refused to be placed under arrest. Habib reportedly placed the victim in a chokehold so tightly it allegedly impeded the victim's breathing and circulation, resulting in the victim temporarily losing consciousness, according to the documents. Records also show Habib faces the following charges: criminal strangulation, criminal obstruction of breathing or blood circulation, assault in the third degree, and unlawful methods of restraint. Habib has 10 substantiated claims processed by the Civilian Complaint Review Board, meaning his alleged conduct violated police rules. The NYPD has discretion over whether discipline is imposed. According to online records, he is still employed by the NYPD. Sal, let's get your thoughts first, and then let's go to Eric.
Well, I don't know what the investigation. Does it say CCRB even went through with this, or are they trying to say that didn't happen? Because I can't understand that last part. But
there is an active CCRB investigation pending the criminal allegation.
Okay, so I'm saying they kind of jumped the gun by indicting him without knowing any facts yet. They just and you mentioned Darcel Clark. That's the same Darcel Clark that was partying with the administration up at Con Sofrito with Jimmy Rodriguez. That same Darcel Clark, just so we have that clear. So this seems like another one of these, I'm going to prosecute a cop and make it look good for myself. I could already tell it's going to be, this is just going to be another one-way Juan Perez job. We know Juan Perez on this show, another guy that's getting railroaded in Manhattan with a crazy case over something that, it was a year later that they even got around and said he punched the guy 6 times in the face when he could have been on the ground getting punched himself had he not done anything to subdue the guy. So I need to see the video of that to even say what the guy did. I don't know. I don't believe her complaints because she's a highly corruptible and conflicted individual herself who should be investigated for her ties back to Jimmy Rodriguez and Con Sofrito and the Cabans. I don't know what her involvement is over there, but you're going to start charging cops? We need to look at you. What did you know about that place, and why was that place still open in the Bronx with no enforcement while you're the district attorney?
Well, I'll say this. I trained jiu-jitsu, been training a long time. Arthur Roldan, $4.99. We appreciate it. Thank you for the donations to this podcast. But I'll say this, 300,000 to 500,000 people approximately get choked out a year training jiu-jitsu, and no one dies because it's applied properly. And the fundamentals and the bedrock to jiu-jitsu is to use a bigger body part against a smaller body part of an adversary. Doesn't mean that I have to be bigger than you, but I use a bigger body part. If I could use my entire body to grab Sal's arm or John's arm to put him in a position that's 100% of my body against 20% of yours. So Cops do not get to pick their adversaries. You may be in a position where you're 5'10" and your adversary is 6'4", 290 pounds, built like a linebacker, and a chokehold is an amazing means of subduing another. It's a great form of control. If you could use 100% of your body against that person's 10%, I don't care how strong they are. If you get control of their neck, you can put them in a chokehold. You can put them to sleep. Never cause any damage, no blunt trauma. It's actually a gentle form of art. It allows you to bring that person to custody and not cause an injury. It just has to be trained and applied properly. But again, they have to give cops a lot more leeway when they're in a moment of survival. Everything's off the table. And fights itself, even no matter how much training you have, it's never pretty. It's just a reality. And you have to do what you have to do to survive. And they need to give cops more allotment and understand they have to go home, but they don't care.
Dean Burney says, when you start picking apart the way officers have to subdue a criminal suspect, we've pretty much lost our way. Was the suspect charged? Was he violent? I'm telling you right now, once this allegation comes up, they probably, whatever he did, he's scot-free for. And we just move the actual investigation over to the officer. And Dan Rumia brings it home. He says, it's so funny how the Bronx DA, who is another work progressive kook, who DPs, which that means for the public is declines to prosecute actual criminals who commit real crimes, but she hammers a cop and throws the book at him. So again, I'm going to sit here and say, this is how the insane New York City is. This is how communist New York City is, that we're even having the conversation that when you're subduing a resisting perpetrator, you're not allowed to do things such as compress the back. But here we are, the system's fair, right? So if the system's fair and the system's just, and this is the best version of New York City and the progressive New York City, and this is the best version of the police department, then Kaz Daughtry should be held to the same rules, right? But I'm sitting here and saying, I think the rules are crazy. I think it's crazy we even having this conversation. And yes, cops need to choke people. What do you, Sal, what do you think about Dan's statement and Dean's statement?
I think they're both correct because they're saying you're right. I mean, if you're going to dissect every single move, again, are they going back to their training? What kind of, I don't see a video on this. What are they deeming as a chokehold? That's the first thing. Is Eric is right. We've seen things that they say, oh, this is a choke, but it's not. It's a shoulder takedown. How long was this hold on for? What was this suspect doing? What was going on there? To me, it looks like, Darcel Clark must have not been partying with Omar Habib at Consofrito, because if you did, you would be untouched. They would say you're a god. So I have anything she does, I already have a lot of questions because she's associating with a mob associate. I want her investigated and sitting in front of the bar because she should be stripped of a bar license for even allowing a place like that to stay open in the Bronx. And if she says, I don't know anything, because they all say that, we don't know anything, you're one of the highest ranking law enforcement people in the entire city. You're the Bronx district attorney, and you let that place run around with no permits, keeping that place open because you're hanging out over there yourself. And now what is she doing? She's picking on a cop that just so happens to try to do their job and doesn't hang out with that crowd. Do you see what I'm talking about? That's your problem there. I want to see a video of what they're saying that he did, because I want to know what they're deeming as a chokehold, because some things are and some things aren't. And Eric could even attest to it better than me because he does jujitsu. I want to see what they're saying is a chokehold.
Before we get into this video, which I think is fantastic to talk about, I just want to say this. I have no issues with Kaz Daughtry putting his knee on someone's shoulder for custody control. But here's the problem. We talk about standards and comparisons. You're in a leadership position, right? And the cops cannot, for the police officers on the street, it's a prohibited move because of policy and law. So if you are a true leader and you believe that you should be able to do that because you are doing that, you set the example. If you believe the police officers should be able to do that, then as a person who's in a position of leadership, you should change the policy in the patrol guide and you should petition with the mayor and New York City Council to have that law changed. Get together with the unions and actually make that law change. That's what real leaders do. Set the example and say, you know what? I did this. My police officers should be allowed to do it, and I will not allow them to be arrested and charged. I will protect them and I will stand for them. But that's not what we see here. I see several comments constantly. Rules for thee and not for me. That's what's going on here. Let's get right into this video.
Yeah, so this video comes out yesterday. You know, thank you guys for sending us this stuff, because honestly, there's no way that we could see everything that's happened in New York City. We wouldn't be able to bring you all of this content if it wasn't for the people in the background that consistently sending us stuff. So, you know, if you want to send something, go over our social media. All links are below wherever you watch or listen to this, as well as, you know, you could email, go to www.thefinestunfiltered.com, and you could email us stuff as well. If we don't get back to you, we apologize. We do get a lot of stuff, but we try to get through as much as we can every day. And, you know, so let's get right into this video. I'm going to play it from the beginning. And I think this is going to show you exactly why a cop in some point needs to choke someone. And I just want you to pretend that you were the female officer who got cold clocked in her face on this video and say, should she be able to put this individual, this savage that sucker punched her, in a chokehold? And I'm going to say absolutely right that she should. And if he continues to resist and not allow him to put his hands in cuffs, then she should be allowed to put him to sleep and then call an ambulance and render aid and put him in, because this is life or death on New York City streets. Let's get right into this video. And then Sal, let's get your thoughts about what transpired. And then Eric, here we go. I'm going to put the volume on so you can hear the inside. Look at the female on the floor. Look at the female. Look at her. Unconscious. Bleeding from her nose.
She's in bad shape right now.
Stop talking like that, nigga. I told you, nigga. Stop talking like that, bro. Nah. Nigga, put her out. You put her out. You put her out.
Savages. Sal, what do you think?
Yeah, this is a scene of, you know, this is a typical scene, I guess. Probably, I don't know where this is, but look, I could tell that looks like a housing project there behind them or in front of them right there. So, you know, first of all, I do not disagree with anything this officer's doing to subdue this guy. This guy is an animal. He clearly took a swing at a female cop, and she clearly doesn't know where she is. My problem is that third officer there. What is he doing? Can he not tell that he is having a problem with this guy? What is he doing? Just wandering off. What? Look, he's just standing over there.
Following his training. He's following exactly how the New York City Police Department.
This guy right there, suspended immediately. You're a coward.
He's right. Just protect himself from the diaphragm law.
Yeah, suspend him immediately. That's outrageous that this guy has to fight this guy by himself while the other guy, he just wanders off. If he's not paying attention to the female cop, which is their partner, then he needs to go and help his other officer who's trying. He's struggling with this guy who will not give his hands to be handcuffed. What is he doing? Once again, it's always one of these videos where you have the officer who's afraid of his own shadow. Guy, read the room, read the situation, help him. Look at that. Look at that. He will not give his hands. The guy has his freaking pants down, for God's sakes. He's fighting with the cop. What are you doing? Go in there. Look, he waits. Oh, not look. He's looking around. He's looking around. You see that? Oh, they're looking at me. Are they videotaping me? That's what he's thinking. I know that. That would be my assumption. He's thinking in his head, oh my God, he punched him. If I do something, they're going to come after me for. That's what they all think. Instead of just saying, I'm gonna help him grab his other arm and we're gonna handcuff him together instead of him struggling with him. This is outrageous what I'm seeing.
There's a few things I want to unpack here when we talk about this incident here, watching this video. First of all, I want to say this. I've heard numerous people actually condemning this female police officer, saying, oh, you know, men are physically far more superior and females should not be cops. I will say the overwhelming majority of males are physically superior than females, and there are gender roles. However, we do have some outliers. We saw a video that we put out yesterday. Yes, it was the day before, of a female police officer that had a phone put in her face and she immediately took action. Clearly, she has some training. She deployed strikes and she handled herself extremely well. And I've heard people saying, oh, if it was a male police officer struck, he would have fought back. Let me first of all debunk that right now. Most people have never been punched in the face. I've trained in martial arts my entire life, including boxing. I've been punched numerous times, so I've had the training and pressure tested. But if you've never been punched in the face, you will shut down. I don't care if you're the biggest weightlifter. If you've never been punched in the face in your life and blood starts to emanate from your face, you will have the same reaction because you've never been exposed to it before, and it will be a scary moment for you. So I'm going to debunk that right away. This police officer is doing his job. But what is true, and this is where the leadership is failing, they don't even care. They only care about you in death. If we continue this path, John and I have been saying on this podcast for 2 years, we are going to lose a police officer to his or her demise. They will find themselves dead by the hands of another without a firearm because they are not properly trained and they are not ready. And they don't have the support of the police department. There are a few outliers, just as we saw that public safety team the other day. They handle themselves extremely well. This female police officer clearly doesn't have the training. This is scary. I wouldn't even be surprised for her if she resigns from the police department, and that's probably what she should do at this point. This male police officer is clearly up for the job, and he's ready. But again, there are male police officers that if they were struck in the face, they would handle themselves in the same manner. So go get yourself training and get yourself prepared, because without the proper leadership and the support in the city, this could happen to you. And I do not want a cop to die by the hands of another without a firearm when it can be prevented. If you could go out there and train and get yourself prepared, lift some weights, take care of yourself, eat right, and you have to be ready for the worst day of your life. And this cop is doing a great job, and it's sad. Thank God these people out here are not completely evil, because right now they could take her firearm for her if they wanted to and kill him. This is some dire situations. Please be safe out there. Train, lift weights, take care of yourself.
Listen, it's a war on cops. It's a war out in the streets in New York City every day. And, this female officer gets sucker punched. You could clearly tell she's not even conscious. She doesn't know where she is, what happened to her. She's relying on members of the public to help her. It's a rowdy crowd surrounding, cheering it on. Cheering that a woman was punched in the face and knocked out, because ultimately she's a woman. I don't care if she's a police officer or whatever. You have men cheering on the fact that a woman was sucker punched. He dropped her. Savages everywhere. But when the war came, this young man went to war. This guy right here, this black officer right here, he went to war. He did not back down. And, we could talk shit all day about women police officers, but let's hone in on the third guy. What the hell is he doing, Sal? You're 100% right. He's pitter-patting back and forth. He's not helping his partner get this guy into handcuffs. He's not helping the female, because easily if someone else could come over and start punching her in the face too. I mean, this is a dangerous, volatile situation, and I see one person that's prepared. I see one person that could help. I see one person who's out on that street as a target of everybody on that street that day. Well, they're all targets, but he's the main target because he's the alpha. He's the one that should be in New York City Police Office. These are the people that we need to go after in the New York City Police Department. And by the way, we talk a lot about arbitrary and capricious. We talk about NYPD PC, how should not be removed the ability to take cases away from the CCRB. This case right here, this was a life and death situation on New York City streets. If we had a leader as the police commissioner, we haven't had one for a very, very long time. But if we did, if we had a leader as a police commissioner right here, immediately after reviewing this video, immediately after speaking to the officers and the witnesses on the scene, immediately after that, I would say this officer is warned and admonished. He did a great job. And not only is he not going to go through the CCRB process or the IIB process, he's going to walk across the stage, and I'm going to promote him to detective immediately upon the next promotion, because this is who is a New York City police officer, not the guy that's walking back and forth. That's a warrior. That's a guardian. The guy on the floor is a warrior. The guardian's walking back and forth confused. Do I help my partner not continue to get assaulted? Do I help my partner to affect arrest? Am I going to get arrested? Am I going to do this? And by the way, this is trained, learned behavior from the New York City Police Department. It's despicable. God bless the people that are out there continuing to do this job under this insane, disgusting administration.
John, I second that absolutely. This is a cop that should get a discretionary promotion. He handled this entire scene. He took control. He saved the life of his female police officer. He took control of this violent perpetrator, this adversary. And Sal, you're absolutely right. That other cop was completely useless. This cop, I say he should be discretionary promoted. Not these cops that sit there and do absolutely nothing that are an admin or personnel. This is the cop that should be promoted to detective. So whoever this cop is, if you're watching this, kudos to you, brother. Outstanding. If I was still Lieutenant Special Operations, I'd put you on my team. And if you're not watching, just let him know I approve this message. He did a great job. Continue it. And if you have a CCRB, call me and John and Sal, New York's Finest Unfiltered Podcast and the Sal Greco Show, and we will help you with your testimony.
Yeah, I would definitely promote him. She would be on a desk because it's going to traumatize her. That guy right there, though, he'd be suspended immediately. Forthwith, he'd be suspended. That's other guy for not doing anything. I can't believe what I'm watching. And I'm going to tell you this, because this hero here, you know why I even struggled with him? Because of the diaphragm law. He can't control him the way a jiu-jitsu guy would if you're on the ground, because you need to get around kind of like a mount position or somewhat like on the back or his shoulder, and it's going to be interpreted as if he's breaking the diaphragm law. So he was smart enough. He struggled a little longer than he could, or he should have, but he still got the job done, regardless of that useless partner he has that's just wandering around. Which way did he go? Which way did he go? That's what he's doing. I mean, this is why we have the problems we have. Some people are not fit to be on the job. That guy right there, I would really consider that guy getting rid of him off the job. I can't stand but watch that. Look at him. He doesn't know what to do. Does he help him? Does he go over to the female that got hit? Then he notices that she's okay and he's struggling. Look at him. You know what it takes? 3 seconds. 85, 8th and 9th. Unit, whatever. Boom. Drop the radio and get into action. That's all it takes. The less than 3 seconds. You could still help him. I don't get it. I don't understand what this guy was doing. He made that situation worse. And for the hostile situation it was, thank God it ended in this way, because this could have been a complete disaster. They're completely outnumbered. Look at that. All these savages cheering.
Savages, brother. Absolutely. And you know what? I want to say to that female police officer, reach out to www.thefinestunfiltered.com. I'd like to speak to you personally. Tell me where you live. I'll tell you where to train. Get some training if you're going to continue on this job. And it's not because you're a female, because we saw the female the other day that handled herself pretty well. The overwhelming majority of females are inferior when it comes to physicality, when it comes to males. But if you are going to be on this job, you could be just like that female the other day that handled herself well. So I hate when people just knock her. Oh, she's a woman. There are plenty of men that if they got punched in the face, and John, I think you agree, and Sal, you agree, there's plenty of men that if they got punched in the face in that manner, they would be just in her position or worse. So let's not knock her for being a woman when it comes to that. So please contact us. I'll tell you where to train. You know, if you're going to stay on this job, you have to spend your own money. You have to take the time out to train. You have to take care of yourself. You have to survive. Honestly, she's lucky to be alive. She could have died. I mean, if they hit the right spot in her face, a punch could be serious. She could fall, hit her head. Someone could have taken a firearm. We have to look at the big picture. And if she was killed, it's unfortunate. They would be calling her a hero. She say she took heroic actions. Who wants to be a hero? You want a flag? Let's be honest. I would be honest. I'd say, no, you're not a hero. You were untrained and you got yourself killed, and I feel sorry. But I'm sorry you got bullied. And that uniform, I hope it's a message to the cops. That uniform is not going to protect you. Nobody cares. You got a Venezuelan gang out there right now, Trende Aragua, who is a legitimate threat to you, who could kill you. Please take this serious. Get up, train every day. And if you don't like martial arts, lift some weights and become the strongest guy in the room. Do that, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, at the end of the day, anybody, like you said, anybody could get sucker punched like that and not know where the fuck they are and get your jaw broke and you're in a world of shit. But that's why it's so important to have other people that are ready, right? Because if you go down, I know that I got this guy to my right or my left that's going to step up for me. And it's the same like when we went to work all the time. I never really worried about my family because I knew that there were people out there in my borough, in the precinct where I live, doing the same things that I was doing in other precincts where other people lived. And now I don't feel that. I don't feel that when we switch from this warrior mindset. We demonized it. We demonized masculinity on this job. And, we switched from it to now people are guardians. And, that's why continuously myself and Eric continue to say, make the NYPD masculine again. Because and what we're really saying is make the NYPD ready to use violence when they need to. But what we just laid out, the case of Kaz Daughtry, everything's arbitrary and capricious. You're a rank and file member of the NYPD. You're subject to these literally impossible rules, fight rules. UFC fighters would not get in the ring under these rules. UFC fight, you know, I know Hannah Gracie developed that great rap system that starts out with the individual on the floor, but he wouldn't take a fight with those rules unless he knew that it was in his favor and he knew that person wasn't as trained as he was. If there was someone as heavily as trained as he was and I gave him the rules, they could do whatever they want to you. You can't compress the diaphragm. He's never taking that fight. He's never taking that fight. Nobody is, because you'd be out of your mind. You would be out of your mind to do it. And that's basically what everyone's been saying is you're out of your mind to become a New York City police officer today. And so what we need to see is we need to see leaders. We need to see leadership. And I think we're not seeing any of it from the Adams administration. I agree with you. You know, we joked that we wanted him to do 4 more years, but honestly, the entire upper echelon of the NYPD's got to go. Kaz Daughtry is being shielded from a prohibited move that he did. And this young man who sat there, protected his officer, protected his partner, protected the people of the city of New York, put his life on the line. He is going to face a completely different set of circumstances. And hopefully not, because we just shed light on this. Hopefully he doesn't, and hopefully he is promoted because we shed light on it. And, you know, that's all I really got to say. Sal, you got any closing thoughts before we start to wrap this up?
What can I say about the Eric Adams administration other than, you know, it's completely a mismanaged organization. The entire thing as a whole is mismanaged. He is, Eric Adams, once again, the most conflicted individual in politics today. He's a highly conflicted man. And if Eddie Caban doesn't want to answer this question, then Mayor Eric Adams has to, because somebody, whether it's Caban or Eric, has to answer for why Kaz Daughtry, what is his legal, you know, authority in the New York City Police Department, because it's become a legal liability. Just like I said, you could ignore those DOI complaints I put in. You could ignore everything, but in the end, you'll be in front of a judge and you're going to have to answer these questions. It may not be today. It might be maybe a year from now. But ultimately, you will be answering for this. And Kaz Daughtry will be on the stand. He will be deposed in numerous cases, maybe even my own. So, you know, that's something the city needs to worry about, especially Eric Adams, the least transparent administration there is. For the cops out there, you saw this video. Please remember, follow your training. You know, I can't say enough about that. Whatever they teach you, whatever those videos they give you in the morning, that's what you're going to do, no matter what John Shell or the other people tell you to do. Because if you know that it's wrong, don't do it. And look, they might transfer you, but then you'll have a lawsuit if they do that, because they can't transfer people because you followed the rules that they train you. All right. And that video right there. And the other thing was the officer that's going through. Now he's going to be charged for an alleged chokehold. And I find this very hypocritical from a woman who herself should be going to the bar explaining her associations to a mob associate in a place that acted in a criminal manner that was open, endangering everyone's life. And she sat there and partied with them. She's just as guilty as Richie Caban and the rest of them over there at Consofrito. So any prosecution from her should be challenged for a criminal associations to everybody over there. And I still want to see the video and see what's being deemed a chokehold. And finally, that video, again, that officer, you should be promoted. I applaud you. You're a real hero for actually putting an end to a situation that could have gone really belly side up. That female, I feel sorry for you. Hopefully, look, reach out to Eric, John. Even if you want to reach out to me, you know, we'll help you through this situation. The other officer, you, my friend, should be suspended. You are not a cop. You're a disgrace, actually, for walking away and leaving your partner to sit there and handle that guy, which he couldn't. He can't use the holy supposed to, because it's the diaphragm law. So he had to, you made a situation even worse than it should have been, when all you have to do is help your partner. That's the number one thing they teach you, is everyone has to go home. They need to sign out at the end of the day. And there you are, because of you, you jeopardize somebody's ability that they may have not been able to sign out. You know, cooler heads prevailed and everybody got home in one piece, but you jeopardized that mission. You should be suspended. You lose days, and I don't know if you should be a police officer.
John, you're absolutely right. Sal, everything you're saying is absolutely right. We depended on the man to our right and the woman to our left, whatever the case is, our brothers and sisters. Because I'll tell you right now, with all the training that I have, been trained my whole life, and I boxed for many years, I've been knocked out, you name it. If I got punched in the face in the manner that female did, it would take me a while to get back also. Any one of us, I don't care how much training we have, you get punched in the face to that point. It's going to take you a while till you get back, and you have to rely on your brothers and sisters to pick up the slack for you until you get back in the game. But that's why I say training is so important. We train so that we don't get to that point. We say it when we train in jiu-jitsu. If you get submitted, you made a mistake. Right? You and I, John, you and I talk about it all the time. We see police officers interacting with the public. They're not standing in the blatant stance. They're making these mistakes. They're allowing people to get in their face. They're allowing people head to head, face to face. Exactly. And they're able to punch them in the face. If I got punched in the face and I'm bleeding like that, it's going to take me some time to get back also. And if anybody says, oh, they're going to pop right back into it, you're a freaking liar. I've been punched in the face. I can tell you right now, it sucks. It's going to take you a while to get back. That's why you need to train so it doesn't happen, because you've made mistakes. She obviously, I don't care what people say, we don't even have to see the video. She made mistakes to get to the point that someone punched her in the face or even sucker punched her. There was a couple of comments in here that I think were good that we should just talk about really quick. Here we go. For dollar comment. And do you guys think the new recruits are in it for the money or actually won't to do policing? Because some of them that I see when I was in the military would never meet the standard. That's the problem. Standards are lowered. They're not getting the proper training. We don't see the bleeding stance anymore. They're not getting the training they need to protect themselves. They're putting these cops out there with no training, with lower standards, because it's just about putting out DEI. Let's put out lesbians, gays, bisexual, transgender, IA, whatever the case is, and not the most suitable. I don't care if you're gay, you're black, but you have to be properly trained and you have to be meant for police work. And then also here goes to what I was just saying, Sherry Alba. I wish we could have seen the footage of these officers before. Was anyone on their phone looking down, not looking at the street? How did she get blindsided and punched out? Exactly that. Refer to your training. If she got punched in the face, there were mistakes made. Don't keep your heads buried in the phone. Don't let people too close to you. Sal, John, do you remember when we first got on the job? What did they tell you? 1 arm's distance. You never want let anyone in your space. And what do we see now? We see cops like this. John, you say it all the time. It drives you crazy when you see these videos and they're not in the blade stance and they're in their face. It drives you nuts, does it not?
I still, I'm in with the, if you're talking to me, I'm ready. Like, I don't care even if we're friends. You know, I'm like, it's so ingrained in me. And honestly, growing up in New York City, before I even became a cop, it was just something, the reality of it is you had to be on guard. And the bladed stance was important because what did they train us, Eric? They trained us that we're not anybody's punching bag. We don't get paid to get beat up on New York City streets. And the reason the bladed stance is so important, and for those of you that don't know a bladed stance, it's your strong foot, right? Where your strong hand, whether you're righty, is back, right? And your hands are up while you're talking to someone. I still talk to people like this. Why? Because if you come at me, I'm going to punch you right in the face. That's why. That's what we're trained to do. We're trained, and you know, it should really be the Cobra Kai: strike first, strike hard, no mercy. Right? If you're gonna come at me, I'm already in my boxing stance to fight you. So there's no way. I'm not saying that I can't get struck. It's very possible you could get struck, but you're eliminating that option. You're eliminating that. And the other thing is, you're able to step back at a moment's notice. You see someone breach that gap on you, you're able to step back and you're still in your fighting stance. You're not moving, you know, and that would eliminate all of that. So, I mean, I don't even need to see the video, but I guarantee she wasn't in the bladed stance. I'll guarantee it right here, right now. And that's how you eliminate it. You know, that's how you eliminate it. And that's why it's so important to present that masculine presence, whether you're a female or a male. I'm ready to fight. Like that little girl. She was a little girl, dude. She was like 5'2", the video we played yesterday. And she was about it. That dude stuck a phone in her face and she didn't hesitate for a second. He came around with his right hand or his left hand and she just started cracking. Boom, 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 fighting. And that's how you, that's an unfortunate reality of policing is violence is a constant, right? Violence is a constant. What's the George Orwell quote? People sleep peaceably in their beds at night because rough men stand ready to commit violence on their behalf. And that is a true statement. And you know, we made a T-shirt. I think we were fundraising for something. We made a T-shirt and we put that in. And you had to see the executives, like little girls. I'm not buying that shirt. We don't do violence. I was like, really? You've been on the job for 20 years? You haven't done any violence? Weird. That's fucking weird because every day I'm going out on New York City streets and I'm getting into fights. I'm wearing this stupid tie and this stupid hat. But really what I'm doing is I'm getting into fights and not ones that I start, by the way. Not ones that I start, by the way. You know, so whether it's an emotionally disturbed person or a resisting perpetrator or a violent felon or someone that committed a minor crime that doesn't want to go to jail, violence is what gets them into handcuffs. You know, is it the minimum amount of necessary force? Yes, that's what that officer did, but that's going to offend a lot of the young cops. That's going to offend a lot of the executives. I'm watching this, and when I slow it down in 0.4 seconds, I see that the officer did this wrong, and I believe that is a violation of this statute that Kaz Daughtry threw out the window and does not need to adhere to, and that this executive wouldn't last 20 seconds with that young man. So great job to you. I think I make the NYPD masculine again.
Solid. Got anything? Absolutely, I agree.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the bladed stance because you played a video the other day with Kaz Daughtry, and not only was there no bladed stance, there's 21 feet that you're supposed to stay of distance because that person could have struck Kaz in the face. And then if he's not a civilian and he's a cop, he can't be saying, "Hey, Bruce Separano, Bruce." So he has to be a civilian because a detective doesn't tell an inspector what to do. Or maybe I lost the rank system. Maybe it changed the NYPD.
Absolutely. Listen, support New York's Finest Unfiltered podcast. Check out these mugs. They are made in China, but they do have the logo. We like them. They're pretty cool. Purchase a mug. It's only $7.68. If you like the podcast, you like the live episodes, it's self-funded podcast. Leave a donation. It does help. It goes back into the podcast. We appreciate all your comments. Stay with us. We will be back. This is New York's Finest Retired and Filtered podcast. On that, I will say, I just want to say this and close with this to that female police officer. I hope that if you are going to stay on the job, you take this as something positive, turn something bad into something good. Go out there and train, become a beast. You can become a beast. You can change your whole mindset, change who you are. And if anyone's knocking her for getting punched in the face and saying, "Oh, you would have handled it well," ask yourself, really, would you? Honestly, because I think I think that you're really not giving the right perspective. So hey, go out there, become a beast, just like that other female did the other day. I salute you, seriously. John, any closing remarks?
Yeah, no, I just want to say, listen, I appreciate all you guys. We had over 500 people in here almost the entire time. It's a 2-hour and 30-minute podcast. So I think this was a long one, but it needed to get out there. Appreciate all yous. We will be back next week at usually around the 08:05, but we put out the notifications the night before. So make sure you like and subscribe, check the bell so that you will be notified when we put out when the lives are coming out, because sometimes they will change the time in the morning. But, I'm truly enjoying having this live, but share this with your friends. For those of you that are on the job, don't be scared of these cowards. Mayors are temporary. So are police commissioners. So's your coward sergeant. Everything's temporary. Everything changes. Don't put yourself out there, but make a handle that's not identifiable to you. Come on, give us your thoughts. You don't reveal any confidential information like John Shell or Kaz Daughtry did to Viral News, where they released a body camera clip. Make sure you check out our good friend at the Sal Greco, his ex, his Instagram. Go over to his YouTube at the Sal Greco Show. At the Sal Greco Show. It's the Sal Greco Show on YouTube. Make sure you check him out, and we'll be around. We'll be in spaces. We'll be in other things. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Check out the mug. We're just using Printify now because we just can't handle holding the inventory. So that's why we're doing it. So if you want the mug, it's got the party department logo on it, as well as it has the Finest Unfiltered logo on it. We made it as cheap as possible. Not really making any money off of it, but if you want it, come get it. We're having morning coffee. Sal, you want to close us out, my friend?
Yeah, listen, guys, like we say, we're here. We just gave you a full analysis. 3 cops that were on the job, that two were supervisors, and me with all. I have just as many arrests as Kaz Daughtry without all the allegations. So with that being said, have a good weekend, guys. Stay healthy. Stay just relax during the weekend, because there's a lot of news to withhold. And listen, and check us out on social media, because you never know what breaking news we're going to break next when it comes to either Mayor Eric Adams' administration or anything going on in the world. So my friends, stay healthy, my friends, and I hope Bootlicker stops using all those cigarettes, because it's a bad habit.
GG7, Joe Curry, Frankie197, James LoFranco, Ron Layson, many of our other people that were live with us. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Take care. See you soon.
There's a handful of retired officers that don't live in the state that have a lot to say about the dream team, as I like to call it. All of a sudden, they retire and have a master plan on how to fight crime. But nothing to contribute when they were here. They want to come back and be part of the dream team. What can I say?
Law enforcement professionals dedicate their lives to serving and protecting our community. But who's protecting their financial futures? That's where Laidlaw Blue comes in. Our wealth management platform is specifically designed for the law enforcement community. Laidlaw Blue is a division within Laidlaw Wealth Management, run by retired New York City detective John McDermott. His status as a retired detective uniquely positions him to establish a deep connection between Laidlaw Blue and the law enforcement community. Our platform is easy to use and provides a range of financial services, including investment management, retirement planning, and insurance solutions. With Laidlaw Blue, you can secure your financial future and provide for your loved ones. Our team of experienced financial advisors understands the unique challenges and opportunities that law enforcement professionals face. We're here to help you navigate the complexities of financial planning and achieve your goals. Laidlaw Blue. Secure your financial future today. Book a meeting using the QR code displayed or call us directly on 888 901 Blue. That's 888 901 Blue.